fruit. I'm just saying. I'm looking forward to this film. Well, Google, back in the news. Google appears to have automatically installed a COVID-19 exposure notification app. That's right. They did this in the state of Massachusetts, right? And this is the deal, man. People woke up to this thing being in their system and on their Android phones. And how do I say this? The app is called, well, Google said today, they're like, hey, it doesn't matter, man. The system only works if the users turn it on. Well, you know what? You don't automatically install something like this on somebody's phone. The app is called Mass Notify. It was launched on June 15th. Many Android users said that it was silently installed on their phones without any notifications. Google said in a statement today that the feature was automatically distributed, but users still have to actively opt in to send and receive exposure notifications. This is creepy beyond words. Now, Massachusetts is the 29th state to debut an app using the Google and Apple exposure notification tool. Around 500,000 residents signed up in the first 2 days after its release. And I'm just saying, man, you know what? That kind of stuff, to me, just doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. You need a notification that something like that was installed on your phone. That's it. You know, do you really? I mean, I understand there's another part to this. I understand some people out there want to be notified if somebody around them is in the system and is now, you know, on a GPS and located on the phone. And the next thing you know, somebody next to you has got COVID and you're looking at, man, but some people are going to want to do that. Oh, man, I get it. I do. But Google really needed to notify everybody. I'm a little bit outraged by all of this. All right. Let's get back to the breaking news. And I think we're up and live, by the way, all the video. And yeah, okay. Drew says we're good. All right. Where am I at? Hundreds of people attended the summer solstice in Stonehenge, despite official advice asking them not to travel to the site in line with COVID restrictions. Police showed up. Man, it's crazy. You see the pictures, you see the video. As a result, English Heritage pulled a live feed of the sunrise at Stonehenge and did that earlier today. People were seen climbing over a low fence to access the stones, police chasing them. Wiltshire police said the event was peaceful, but added that a number of people at nearby Avebury had caused some issues. Video from the scene showed about 100 people inside the stone circle. It wasn't like years past where you've got 10,000 people going. No, it wasn't that. But there you go. 100 people broke down the fences and went in and shot a bunch of selfies. Now, I just talked about Chris Pratt and the Tomorrow War. Well, let's get the show cracking because happy birthday to today, Chris Pratt. Chris Pratt today is 42 years old. The Killers frontman Brandon Flowers today is 40. Kinks leader Ray Davies today is 77. Aerosmith drummer Joey Kramer today is 71. Guitarist Nils Lofgren today is 70. And Kip Winger is 60. Our dead guy's birthday today is Victor Soy. 1962 to 1990, died at the age of 28. Victor was a Soviet and Russian singer and songwriter who co-founded Kino, one of the most popular and musically influential bands in the history of Russian music. Throughout his career, Victor contributed a plethora of musical and artistic works, including 10 albums. In 1990, after their high-profile concert at the Luzhniki Stadium, he briefly relocated to Latvia with bandmate Yuri Kasparyan to work on the band's next album. 2 months after the concert, Soy was in a car collision on August 15th, 1990, when he fell asleep while driving on the freeway in Latvia. He was dead at the scene. Wow. Happy birthday, Victor. On this day in history, OTD, 1990. Earthquake devastates Iran and kills an estimated 50,000 people and injures another 135,000. The 7.7 magnitude tremor wreaked havoc on the simply constructed houses in the area on this day in 1990. Fader fact. All right. Here you go. This is crazy. In 1957, a woman, her name is Alice Roth, was struck by consecutive foul balls by Phillies star Richie Ashburn, who hit her twice in the same at-bat. The first one broke her nose, and the second one broke her leg while she was being carried out on a stretcher. You gotta love the universe. And that is your Fader Fact tonight. Right here, Cheryl Costa. Two great books out. We're going to be talking about that. One is called the UFO Beat, which covers her journalism over the last 9-10 years. We're going to do all of that, and we're also going to talk about her book, which is the UFO Sightings Desk Reference, and from 2001 to 2020. It's pretty incredible. We're going to be talking about all of that tonight. Tomorrow night, right here, Ronnie Dawson. I remember the Texas oil field incident when that story broke, and I covered it, and I looked at the videos and the entire story. Well, I got to hang out last week with Ronnie Dawson, and I got to hear the story firsthand. It's incredible. We're going to do all of that tomorrow night with Ronnie Dawson here for the first time. Wednesday night, Richard Dolan joins us. We're going to be doing a full UAPTF preview special event because maybe on Thursday, it's the report release. It might be Friday. More on that in just a minute. All right, let me go here. I want to make sure. Yeah, we're good. We're good. I know everybody kind of panicked for a minute, but we are good. Let me do this and just want to say hello to everybody. Let me get this up. See, it wasn't that bad. There you go. All right. Oh, man. Let me hit this River Moon coffee. All right. rivermoonwellness.com. The links are over at jimmychurchradio.com. Everything's right there. Best coffee in the world. Fade to Black blend. Of course, the Game Changer blend. All of our other products, the Black Moon products, everything is available over at River Moon Wellness. And if you go over to jimmychurchradio.com, all the banners are right there. You can just click and do that and go and visit our Amazon store. And, of course, rivermoonwellness.com. Everything's right there. All right. Promo code F2B Blend, 15% off of your order today. All right. Man, that's good coffee. I mean, it's just incredible coffee. All right. Here we are. Yep, that's right. Christmas in June. You see, today is June 21st, 2021. A lot of twos and ones in that. June 21st, 2021. And this is officially UAPTF week around here at the Fade to Black Studios. 4 days. No, actually, it's 3.5. And by the time the show ends tonight, the number shall be 3. 3 days until the UAPTF report is supposed to be released to the Senate Intelligence Committee and then, in turn, to the world. Exciting? Yes, it is. The amount of drama behind the scenes and the emotional buildup that has been going on is almost too much to handle. I can't tell you the amount of phone calls I have fielded this weekend. It has been nonstop. Tensions are running high. And to be honest, there are so many researchers and members of the UFO community that have been at this for so many decades that they're finding themselves all wrapped up in it right now. And I get it. Everybody has a theory. And then everybody has a theory for their theory if things don't go as planned. Whatever that plan or theory may be. Yes, things are starting to get pretty intense, and I get it, and I understand why. Well, this Wednesday night, Richard Dolan will be with us, and we're going to do a full preview of the UAPTF, which is supposed to be released this Thursday morning. But hey, it may be Friday, maybe over the weekend. Who knows? Well, technically, nobody does. At least nobody in the UFO community, the mass media, or, well, most of Washington, D.C. Nobody knows. So what do we know at this point in the game? Well, all of the latest statements that were made last Thursday on this show, on this very program on June 17th, when Lou Elizondo called in. Let's examine some of this, because we spent about 30 minutes discussing the report, Lou and I. And Lou is about as close as we can get to the report without having it physically in our hands. At least that's the way that I feel. Okay, so in a general sense, we have this for now. Number one, the report will have a classified section of 78 pages and an additional public unclassified section of about a dozen pages or less. The report will state that in all of the cases and events investigated, none, as in zero, involved U.S. tech. Okay? It's point number 2. Point number 3. The report will not state that the object or cases were of ET origin, or will any words that involve not of this earth, meanings, right? No ET, no flying saucers, off-world, interstellar, or little green men. There will be nothing to imply that. Those words will not be used. The investigations were all dated after 2004. Number 5, the report doesn't rule out foreign adversaries or state actors. That's right. And number 6, media outlets reported that there were 120 cases investigated in the report. Well, current numbers, as reported to me, are said to be significantly less than 120. Now, on the surface, all of this means virtually nothing. We have to get and read the report after it's released. Okay, that's what we got to do, because everything that has been said until it's released, all of this means nothing. Don't want to get people upset. Don't want to get people excited. Reports got to release. We, the public, are or should have access to the non-classified section, because that is what exactly was requested in the funding bill back in 2020, right? This shall be for the public. You know, that's what was in the bill, in the funding. That's right. Unless the classified section gets leaked, we'll never know what is in that part of the report. And what the Senate and the DIA deem safe for public consumption is going to be very interesting for us to find out, right? What is it that we can handle? You know, this is the public saying we don't want to upset everybody. You know, this is what we're going to release to the public. So we know we've got 78 pages classified, a couple of pages for the public, like an afterthought. But we're going to find out. But if the report says it ain't us, and some of it ain't Russia or China, what's left? You got it. The little green men. Right? For sure. That's what's left. Or maybe they're going to imply that it's a civilization that we don't know about that's living right here on Earth, hiding in plain sight. There could be that. But there will be people out there who will be happy with this conclusion, right? No mention of little green men, but what do they really mean? So there's going to be people happy with that, leaving things wide open for debate and conversation in the years ahead. And I get it. I fully understand that, and I anticipate that happening. Then there will be those who are expecting full disclosure this week. And the report, short of, we are not alone in the universe, it's going to make some people very, very unhappy. You know what? None of this is what is most important. At least to me. The most important part of all of this is what is going to happen a month from now. Right? How will the world react and continue to react? Are we going to keep the pressure on? Is this just a way to silence the UFO community? To get us to shut up for a while. The UFO community itself will be able to handle whatever comes. It doesn't matter. We've been at it for decades, and we are in it for the long haul. We know this. There are new members to the phenomena who actually think that the UFO UAP subject is weeks old. This is brand new stuff, right? And they are going to get instant answers, right? Like as in right now. And you have to ask yourself, are they ready to be totally bummed out and let down, right? Will they have the energy to stick around for the good fight for another 10 or 50 years? For the UFO veteran researchers that have been, at it for decades, just a tiny little crack in the door is all we need, right? Enough light let in so we can finally start to move the ball forward and downfield. Yes, it'll be like Christmas Eve when you peek down the stairs and you see those presents under the tree and you wonder how they got there, right? Seriously. This week may truly be Christmas in June, and I look forward to it. This is Fade to Black. I am your host, Jimmy Church. Tonight, Cheryl Costa. I am so excited to finally have Cheryl on the show with us. So much to discuss. I was talking to Cheryl earlier, and I said, we're going to run out of time. She goes, we are. That's right. Cheryl Costa is with us on the Game Changer Network and KGRA, The Planet. You can follow me on Twitter at JChurchRadio. Twitter was a lot of fun today, wasn't it? All right. Follow me right there. Email is jimmy@jimmychurchradio.com. The sandbox is hashtag F2B. Everybody over on YouTube is probably causing trouble by now. And hello to everybody on Spreaker, Facebook. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. I'll be right back. Stay with us.
This is Nicole Church, daughter of you-know-who, and you're listening to Fade to Black on JimmyChurchRadio.com and the Game Changer Network.
You're listening to Jimmy Church, Fade to Black.
Fade to Black will now pause for alien identification.
The station that talks the net. KGRA Radio.
Introducing the Game Changer blend from River Moon Coffee that delivers a customized blend made specifically for the Fadernauts. If the game is rigged, change the game. It's a bolder cup with some bite. Game Changer is the coffee of choice for those that prefer an organic dark roast that is slightly lighter and milder, but it's still dark. with wild notes of pecans and chocolate with a rich, balanced, full-bodied cup that is roasted to perfection for a great coffee to start your day, as an after-dinner coffee or anywhere in between. Artisan, small batch roasted to perfection. USDA certified organic, all River Moon coffee is freshly roasted and packaged in the USA. Just go to rivermooncoffee.com or click on the banners over on our site and use the promo code F2BBLEND for 15% off of your order today. rivermooncoffee.com.
This is the only way forward.
This is Fade to Black. Make contact. KGRAradio.com.
This is Jimmy Church of Fade to Black, and you can get our podcast for just $2 per month. All you have to do is click on the podcast banner over at jimmychurchradio.com.
Hi, folks. It's troubling times, and fear is pushing emotions, which in turn pushes health the wrong direction. Do you ever get an ache because life is uneasy? Try Life Change Tea at getthetea.com. Life Change Tea works on your digestive tract, helping to move food through quicker and comfortably so your health is spot on. Life Change Tea may not help with world issues, but it will help with your digestive issues. A glass a day helps keep the intruders away. So, change your life today. Log on to getthetea.com. That's getthetea.com. If your health game is off, get on by ordering Life Change Tea. Getthetea.com. And while you're on our site, look around at the great non-GMO organic supplements. And if you're a sales shopper, go to our specials page and see what's for you. I've been drinking the tea for 12 years and I'm sure glad for its health benefits. Again, that's getthetea.com. Getthetea.com. The tea that makes you go.
Fadernauts. When you think about the future of our country and where we're headed, do you wonder about the food supply? I do. Disruptions in the food supply chain could be disastrous, and they usually occur with little warning. That's why the smartest thing you can do today is to stockpile emergency food, water, and other essentials. I personally recommend My Patriot Supply. They're the nation's largest emergency preparedness company, serving millions of customers for more than a decade. In fact, they're the only source my family trusts for our preparedness plan. You should too. Right now, save 20% off a full 4-week supply of delicious meals that provide 2,000 calories a day. Saving 20% helps too, doesn't it? Especially now. So go to preparewithjimmy.com and get ready. That's preparewithjimmy.com. There's no time to lose. Do it now.
9 out of 10 geneticists agree.
Fade to Black is not your father's radio show on the Game Changer Radio Network and KGRA, the planet.
Hi, this is Rob Reiner from Anvil, and you're listening to JimmyChurchRadio.com.
What's up? I'm Chris. What up? This is Kyle Massey. You're listening to Jimmy Church Radio.
All right, welcome back. Fade to Black. I am your host, Jimmy Church. Tonight, Cheryl Costa is with us. Tomorrow night, Ronnie Dawson. Wednesday night, Richard Dolan. Thursday night is Fader night with open lines all night long. Great week ahead. Tonight, it's all about Cheryl. She joins us for the first time, and we're going to discuss her recently published book called The UFO Beat, the New York Skies column from July 2013 to June 2019, and the UFO Sightings Desk Reference, United States of America 2001 to 2020, which includes over 121,000 sightings. Now, it's about how she's got it listed. Yeah, it's the hot spot, but it's everything according to the data and sighting reports down to the county level. It's an amazing read. We're going to go pretty deep into this tonight. She is a native and resident of upstate New York who saw her first UFO at age 12. We'll be talking about that too as well tonight. Military veteran. She's a retired information security professional from the aerospace industry, and she's been a speaker at the International UFO Congress and the MUFON Symposium. From 2013 to 2019, she wrote the UFO column New York Skies for the Syracuse New Times, and also holds a Bachelor of Arts degree from the State University of New York at Empire State College in entertainment writing. And I would like to welcome for the first time to Fade to Black. I'm excited. Cheryl Costa. Cheryl, what are you doing?
Hi, Jimmy. How you doing?
I am fantastic. I'm even better now that finally we've got you on the show. But you get the first-time guest disclaimer. You ready? Yeah.
Okay.
Cheryl, it's just you and I sitting on my couch having a conversation as friends. And where the conversation starts, it starts. Where it ends. But we're going to end as friends. There you go. See, pretty simple. You ready?
Okay.
I don't even know. See, the thing is, I have followed you over the years. There's that part. But we have so many mutual friends between us. And I can't tell you how many times your name is, Jimmy, man, have you talked to Cheryl? Jimmy, have you got any, you need to talk to Cheryl, right? We got to get this done. And finally, you are here. But there are so many things that we need to talk about tonight, and I'm being very serious about this. I know that we're going to run out of time. There's too much to do. But I got to talk about you as a 12-year-old. Can we start there? What happened?
Sure. Late August afternoon, about 3 weeks before school started again, we were visiting an uncle up in farm country. It was a really nice season, so the corn was higher than the car. And we were coming down off the hill where the uncle's farm is. And my mother had my father pull the car off the dirt road a little bit, and she pointed out into the western sky. It's about 4 o'clock in the afternoon. Clear blue sky, not a cloud anywhere, and parked out there like a rock was a sphere. And it was bright and it was gleaming. And my mother said, it might be something NASA's doing. NASA was only like 5 or 6 years old at that point. Mm-hmm. Might be the Air Force. It might be a weather balloon. And then she said, it might be people from another world. And of course, that fascinated me as a 12-year-old. And so we talked about it for a few minutes. And we got back on the road, went down to the bottom of the hill, turned left to head back to my hometown. And I got up in the window of that big old Chevy Impala.
Right.
There, who are you guys? Who are you guys? And when that thing decided to leave, it was an effect I didn't see again until like the early 90s with some of the Star Trek movies, that kind of a boom off into a ball of light kind of thing. And it changes you, and, teenagers, mom and dad are stupid. Okay. But mom and I actually, we disagree on a lot of things, even to this day, but we can still have a civil, informed conversation about UFOs all through high school. I'd get books at the library. She'd get books at the library. We'd read them, share them with each other. When Von Daniken's Chariots of the Gods came out, she dog-eared on the top of the book. I dog-eared on the bottom of it. Mm-hmm. The book was destroyed from all that. And that was it. That was the first thing. And I didn't see another thing like that until about 6 years later. I was in the Air Force.
Right.
I was in Cam Ranh Bay, Vietnam. And it was about 11:30 on Christmas Eve, 1971. I was walking down to the base chapel with a military friend of mine. And it was we were out on a sandbar. Cam Ranh Bay, Vietnam was out on a sandbar down about middle part of the country. So we didn't have a lot of light pollution out there. And as we were walking sort of westward towards the base chapel, gazillion stars in the sky kind of night. And we see this thing streaking across the sky. And both of our impressions was, a jet,
Right. It's Vietnam. There's a war. It could be anything, right?
Yeah. And then it stops. And my friend looks at it and says, jets don't stop and helicopters don't fly that fast. And I said, yeah, I know. If that's what I think it is, it's going to start dancing around like a fairy. And darned if it didn't start dancing around like a fairy and then gone. Neither one of us had our minds on midnight mass when it got to the channel.
No, midnight mass is an afterthought. The thing is, you mentioned the Impala, and how cool is it that back then, no seatbelts, no nothing, and so you're able to spin around and check it out. Today, the kids are denied, right? They're denied the ability to get the follow-up, because if you weren't able to do that, you wouldn't have seen it shoot away. And it just, thank goodness for family trips in the car without seatbelts. I'm just saying.
Yeah. My brother and sister were toddlers, but also let's keep the safety factor. Had Dad had to stop, they would have been ejected.
Yep.
But
No, I know. My brother and I, a couple of weeks ago, I was back in Indianapolis, and we shared this story. I'm just going to make this really brief. My dad, who just recently passed away, he's driving. I'm in the passenger seat, but my little brother, David, at that time, I'm like 16, but David's like 2, right? 2, maybe 3 years old, standing on the armrest that folds down, right? Just standing in the car. And we told the story about that. Something happened, but that's neither here nor there. But I think about it now. If anything, he's ejected, right? He's out the front window,
Yeah.
And wow, how times have changed. Now,
can I give you a little point about those books that I read with my mother?
Yes.
They were guys like Frank Edwards and those kinds of guys, okay? And those books ended up being something that helped me get that job at the Syracuse New Times later, because I'd gotten thrown out of editor after editor after editor's office pitching the idea of a weekly UFO column.
Right.
And the Larry Dietrich, the editor-in-chief of the Syracuse New Times at that time, invited me up. We had a cup of coffee together. He didn't want to even see my 5 slides yet, okay? He just said, let's talk. And as it turns out, we were about the same age. He had an event in his teenage years, and he had read pretty much the same books. We sat there bouncing these books off of each other, So he gets done with the whole talk after 20 minutes and said, I'm sympathetic. He says, I can't do it, but you can. I'll try you out for a month. Okay.
Now that never happens in the news world when it comes to UFOs. It just never does. You were pretty lucky.
I was. And what was funny was he said, it was like the Princess Bride and the Dread Pirate Roberts, almost like it'll kill you in the morning. I'll try you out for a month.
Yes.
I get this phone call. We need to talk. Get over here, Cheryl. I thought, that's it. It's over with. I'm a little late to the meeting. I come walking in. The other columnists are sitting around this board table. I walk in. He's talking to him. He stops. He points at me and says, there's our rock star. And I look at him. I said, what are you talking about? And he says, you've been here 4 weeks and you're pulling more page views than all the columnists combined.
Now, and that's something that I think is very important, that today we can discuss, the success of Ancient Aliens or all of the UFO programming that's going on, or the books but the media was late to the party. They really were. The public has always been fascinated with this. The public has always wanted to know, but there was a fear in media about this subject, and I confronted it head on, and I heard these different news directors and people, no, not UFOs. You can do anything but that. They were late to the party.
Yeah. I talked to other editors about this, and they told me, no, we'll lose our credibility with our readership. And one thing, it was like a broken record. I heard that a lot. A couple of them just said, they can't get here from there. They can't possibly be here. And so they weren't interested. And like I said, I got escorted to the door. I got escorted to the door by security, after I gave my pitches. And I think there was some jealousy after that, because right off the bat, we started drawing some really good page views, and we were doing it on the online edition, which the New Times was trying to develop at that time. Mm-hmm. And it was a page view magnet. And 6 months later, the digital editor, who I reported to, called me up and said, "You're pulling a national audience." And at the Christmas party, him and the publisher stood up there and toasted me and said, "She's polling an international audience in a little dinky weekly newspaper in upstate New York."
Right, right. No, I've been reading you for a very, very long time. And so the question I have for you right now, it's rock and roll. It's crazy town. Did you see this coming? Did you see the environment that we are in now? In your wildest dreams, did you think we would be here today?
Yeah, I did. For two reasons. I had a lot of runaround time on phones and at conferences with Steve Bassett, and he predicted we were going to be here, but he thought it was going to happen a few years ago. But we got to exactly where he said we would be. In fact, in early 2020. Him and I had a couple of conversations on the phone and discussed where this would be, and we're pretty much on track. The only complicated part is if we do get congressional hearings out of all this, okay, if that happens.
Right.
It's complicated. Are we going to get a parade of swaggering pilots and retired a Defense Intelligence Agency spooks? Okay, this is going to be all intelligence guys talking about their 120 sightings in 20 years.
Right.
Because a couple of people said if they really dig deeper, and I already know the Congressional Information Office has our book of statistics. I know for a fact they have it. And if that's been spread around at all, Linda and I have done the only statistical work since Project Blue Book in 50 years.
Now, who I'm going to stay on this for a second, but you just mentioned your sister. Who did more?
Wife.
And who did the most work?
In the first book, she was the lead writer.
Right.
Okay. I did the statistics and analysis and the mechanical work of working with spreadsheets and all that and the database.
Right.
But she was the lead writer with the first book in 2017. Her idea was, let's do 21st century numbers.
Right. Because she looks pretty intense.
Oh, she is intense. She is intense.
She looks pretty intense.
Wrestle with her.
Yeah. And so I just kind of, I'm just saying that in the kindest way, but she looks like she gets the work done. Right?
There are people that say that she is caustic, but she gets to the point. She used to be the head librarian at the Environmental Protection Agency's toxicology library. The woman knows more about poisons than you can shake a stick at.
So does that mean you have to behave? I'm just saying. Do you have a coffee taster?
Yeah, we have a collection of books on organic poisons that would choke a horse. So, it's pretty crazy. She's not in that field now. But when it came to doing the second book, I had run with the data. I had run with the statistics. I had done this very deep analysis. I can't tell you what I did in the Navy, but I applied basically old school intelligence analysis with modern tools. So the first book took us 18 months. The second book took me 750 hours, but there was a lot of, I've been collecting data for a couple of years. I had all the data in there. It was a matter of finally sitting down and crunching it and generating all the charts. And we generated charts in this pink book that was unlike anything anyone's ever seen, with charting the years, months, and hours of every single shape that we know of.
Yes,
I've seen that.
Can I ask you, do you feel that you probably know as much about sightings, not famous cases? We're not, that's not what this book is about. But do you think you know as much about sightings as anybody on planet Earth? Because when I look at your data and how you extrapolated it, what you eliminated, how these charts and graphs are put together, I have to think that there may not be anybody out there that's got what you have in your brain.
I was telling a reporter a couple of weeks ago, I said, I'm a UFO statistician. First thing he says, there's no such thing. And I said, well, there's 2 in the United States, and I'm married to the other one.
Right. Because I'm going through this data, and I want the audience to know. So, I call up Cheryl, and we start discussing this data and listening to how you're able to pull this out. It says to me that you've been looking at these numbers and putting all of this together for a very long time. You have it right there in your frontal lobe.
Yeah, that's exactly it. There were many days after the first book came out in 2017. There were many days in 2018 and 19. Remember back in 2019, everybody said, oh, the sighting numbers are in the toilet. Oh, my God, Space Force chased them away, And I kept trying to tell everybody they'll be back next in a year or so because this is a natural 6 to 8 year cycle. Trust me, they'll be back.
Can we discuss that for a second? Let me look at the clock. Let's stay right there. That 6 to 8 year cycle, I was not aware of. And now once you compile the data and you step back, right, and you look at this, you can't deny these kinds of numbers. What conclusions can you come to see these dips, right? Well, it's mountains too, right? This cycle goes both ways. But when you look at that, what do you think is ultimately happening?
I don't know. I don't know if it's heck. They used to have a cycle before we had internet and before we had CDs and DVDs. They used to bring out Disney movies every 7 years. So like there's this new audience every 7 years or something like that. I don't know. I know when we came out with the first book, because we had only 2001 to 2015 data, I had everybody calling me up saying, why didn't you go back 40 years? But I knew 40 years worth of data wasn't going to be very much, because I had come to understand something that how am I going to say this? I'm sorry, it's late night. For the first 5 years of the 2000s, 2001 through about 2006, there's a gradual upgrade, a slope going up. Well, the deal is that was when I'm a retired IT person.
Right.
Okay, that is when deployment of broadband started really happening in the major cities and in their suburbs. And broadband access has been to UFO reporting like the printing press has been for just the dissemination of information in our culture. Prior to 2001, the sighting numbers were only about 500 a year or less. Okay, for that 40 years, from 1962 to 2000, we had 13,150 sightings. I had that many in 2012.
I want the audience now. I've got so many different platforms in front of me, but I want everybody to stop and think about where you're located. You know where you live. If you would like to post up in Twitter or YouTube or Facebook or Spreaker, wherever you're chatting right now, post the city that you're in and maybe even the county. Because, and the state part of this is intriguing, but when you break this down into the data some of the data that we're going to start speaking about, your county may be mentioned, and maybe even the city that you live in. But I think that is one of the most interesting parts about the data when you break this down. But if we back up 40 years ago, APRO wasn't doing counties, right?
No, they weren't.
Right. MUFON probably wasn't doing counties back in the early days.
NUFORC for sure wasn't.
Right. And so how do you was that part of the determination with some of this data that you couldn't get as explicit and precise as you needed to going back to the 50s and 60s?
I was writing, exactly that. I was writing my newspaper column, and a weekly newspaper column sounds like a cool gig, but it can be a grind. Think of how much sweating you did just before you did a term paper or something like this. This was a term paper every week. Mm-hmm. And the problem was I had to have something to write about. New York State was my beat. So I started digging into where they were in certain cities in the state and figure out what counties those were in, things like this. And as we started adding that stuff up, we started realizing that there were county patterns. I showed some of this stuff to some retired former MUFON state directors and things, and they were looking at my charts and saying, these were preliminary charts before we ever thought of writing a book, and said, We didn't know there was a cluster there. We didn't know there was a cluster there either. Who thought, everybody thought the hot spots in New York State were the Niagara Frontier, Erie County area, and the Hudson Valley.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, if you believe the PR, everybody will tell you Pine Bush is the ground zero for UFOs in New York State. And the truth is, it's Suffolk County, Long Island.
And who would have guessed that? Right?
Who knew?
Who knew?
But it's a highly rural area. And it's touched by a major body of water, and that's a driver issue.
Now, the other part for me, as a UFO beat, right? Well, that's the name you call it. But as a writer of that, were you also seeing trends? Were you getting contacted from people around New York, and you're seeing trends that weren't necessarily in the media or what MUFON was reporting, for instance?
Oh yeah, we saw stuff that nobody else was seeing, and every time we reported, we had all these people sending us mail. Oh no, you girls can't be right on that. Oh yeah, that's got to be all wrong because this is what's really happening. You dumb little bunny. We got a lot of that. That's why that book is got a pink cover that you can flag in an aircraft with. 2 women put this book together, and it's dedicated to the woman who's founded APRO.
Now, let me, yes.
I don't mean to be a feminist on this, but, that's the deal. We had a lot of people telling us, oh, no, you aren't doing case studies. You aren't doing real UFO science. They're studying with case studies, which is perfectly valid stuff. They are studying the individual ant. We decided to study the anthill.
Can we, I've got 3 minutes. I'm going to give you a little bit of a platform because I have discussed this so many times on the show, but it may not be what you are going to expect, Cheryl. But let me say this. A lot of people talk about that the ufology and the conferences, it's the old boys club. And I disagree with that. And I'll tell you, I just came off of a conference in Laughlin that was attended 50-50 right down the middle. But I'll go through weeks and months on this show with having nothing but women on this show. And I think some of the best research comes from women.
Agreed.
And now, am I wrong in saying that I think that women are equally as represented in this? And I just want your take because I get arguments about this all the time that I'm dead wrong.
Okay, on the board of MUFON, you got 2 very, very talented women. And don't ask me to bring their names up.
Doesn't matter.
I'm drawing a blank.
Sure.
And a lot of the state directors and chief investigators in a lot of the states are women for MUFON.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. But for a long time, when we first came out with our data book, everybody told us we were wrong with our approach and there was no place for UFO statistics. What can you learn from that? I had a major individual at MUFON say, if we're not studying it, it doesn't need to be studied, and we're not studying statistics.
Did you karate chop them to the throat? What do you do?
Believe me, I would have liked to. Bottom line, though, he saw that, the briefing I sent you before the show.
Right.
He was on a distribution list that saw that briefing recently, and he went bananas. And he said, this needs to be put in front of every academic in this country. And I felt vindicated at that point.
Yeah. What did I texted you, right? This is brilliant. I mean, it's just a great read. Now, the links for Cheryl, everybody, are over at jimmychurchradio.com. Very easy to get to. Just go and click and check out. There's 2 volumes to the book, or to the desk reference. But, of course, there's also the UFO Beat, the New York Skies column from July 2013 to June 2019. Let's take our break right here, Cheryl. And when we come back, I want to jump into some stats. Can we jump into some stats?
Sure, I'm pulling the database up now.
I'll talk to you in a minute. This is Fade to Black. I am your host, Jimmy Church. Tonight, Cheryl Costa. You can follow Cheryl. Everything is right there at jimmychurchradio.com on the Game Changer Network and KGRA The Planet. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
This is Fade to Black with Jimmy Church on the Game Changer Radio Network and KGRA, the Global Radio Alliance.
This is KGRA Digital Broadcasting Station, Salt Lake City, Utah, Van Buren, Arkansas.
This is Billy Carson with ForbiddenKnowledge.tv. Forbidden Knowledge TV has just reached its 1-year anniversary. That's right, 1 year. And as a show of appreciation, we are giving all new subscribers a free 30-day trial of ForbiddenKnowledge.tv. That's 30 days to binge watch thousands of movies, documentaries, conferences, workshops, lectures, yoga classes, meditation courses, and so much more. So log on to ForbiddenKnowledge.tv from your computer or mobile device, or get the Forbidden Knowledge TV app on Apple TV, Roku, Amazon, iTunes, or Google Play today, and use coupon code 30daysfree. That's coupon code 30 days free on ForbiddenKnowledge.tv today.
Because you never got that pony you always wanted. Damn it. Jimmy Church and Fade to Black on the Game Changer Network. KGRADB.com.
Listen, I know, and you know, that you've always wanted your first crystal skull. Or maybe you're a collector just like me, but you just don't know where to go to find the real thing. Then I met Carolyn Ford over at EinsteinTheCrystalSkull.com. Carolyn is the guardian of Einstein, one of the most respected ancient crystal skulls in the world. All of her unique skulls have been imprinted sitting with Einstein in his sacred lodge and are carved from the finest gemstone and materials. Imprinting is the process of receiving the ancient wisdom from the master skull or master computer. Einstein, the ancient crystal skull. To see Carolyn's current collection of crystal skulls, just visit her store at EinsteinTheCrystalSkull.com or click on the banner over on our site. Don't forget to use the promo code Jimmy at checkout to receive 10% off of your order today. That's promo code Jimmy. Finding your first or next crystal skull is easy. Just visit EinsteinTheCrystalSkull.com. When you take the beans from Central America with dashes of Indonesian and African mixed in and then roast it to the dark side of Fade to Black, you create the ultimate brew of fringe. Introducing the Fade to Black blend from Rivermoon Coffee. Yes, Rivermoon's darkest customized roast was created for the love of Fade to Black. The alchemy of masterful roasting and smoking the beans is in every sip of this full-bodied, dark Java. I need my coffee dark, deep, with distinct bittersweet chocolate highlights, just like the bunker. Leaning further into the darkness of the roast is Fade to Black blend from Rivermoon Coffee. Just click on the banner at jimmychurchradio.com and use the promo code F2BBLEND for 15% off of your order today.
Hello, I'm Katie and you're listening to my main man, Jimmy Church, on jimmychurchradio.com.
Hi, this is Ray Hobbs here, repping the planet, and you're listening to my good friend, Jimmy Church, Fade to Black, on the Game Changer Network and the KGRA Digital Broadcast Station.
This is Toby Kebbell. You're listening to JimmyChurchRadio.com. Don't hurt me, Jimmy. I'm only little.
Hey, I'm Adrian Grenier. And this is Ari Gold. We're the Honey Brothers. We're also Honey Brothers. Hey, I'm Adrian Grenier. And I'm Ari Gold. We're the Honey Brothers. And you're listening to Jimmy Church. The Revolution.
This is Jimmy Church of Fade to Black, and you can become an official Fadernaut by just going to our membership section at jimmychurchradio.com.
Hello, this is Serena Wright Taylor from Conscious Life Expo, and you're listening to Fade to Black with Jimmy Church, who holds the Lucky Pony record for the best astrological chart since 1963. True story.
This is Micah Hanks of the Gralien Report, and you're listening to Jimmy Church on Fade to Black, across the globe on the Game Changer Radio Network and the one and only KGRA Radio, The Planet.
All right, welcome back. Fade to Black. I am your host, Jimmy Church. Tonight, Cheryl Costa is here. Tomorrow night, Ronnie Dawson, the Texas oil field UFO incident. It's going to be great. Wednesday night, of course, Richard Dolan is here. We will be doing our UAPTF preview event. And then, of course, we know what's supposed to go down on Thursday, maybe Friday. But that's the week here. And tonight, it's Cheryl Costa. And her two books are out. The links are over at jimmychurchradio.com. Right now, we're going to jump into the UFO Sightings Desk Reference. And Cheryl, I just posted out on social media this question. Okay, now don't say anything, Cheryl. Okay, don't do it. But the question is, okay, what city do you think has the most sightings? And so here are, I've got hundreds of responses, but here we go. We've got Philadelphia, Clark County, Nevada, Chicago, Arkansas, Philadelphia, Odessa, Texas, Pahrump, Nevada, Las Vegas, Washington State, Gulf Breeze, Florida, Buffalo, New York comes in. There you go. Salem. Somebody put Madagascar. That's actually kind of funny. And but I can keep going down the list here. Washington State, not D.C., Vegas, Nye County. A lot of Vegas here, right? And you would expect that. We've got Ohio, North Carolina. We're gonna circle back to that North Carolina. I found that very interesting. Portland, Oregon, Santa Fe, right? And I'm just going to say this to everybody. You're all wrong. You're all wrong. There was one, got Hawaii in here. One person got it right. I read over that, and I'm pretty fascinated. But the number one location, Cheryl, what is it?
Okay, city or county?
City.
City. Number one city in the United States out of this book is Phoenix, Arizona.
Now, that can't be right?
1,221 sightings in 20 years. For a municipality, that's a lot.
Now, are you right? Are you surprised by the numbers? Aren't going to lie, right? You're compiling the data.
No.
But were you surprised with Phoenix?
No, I wasn't, because the county that it's in, well, one, they had the Phoenix Lights 20 years ago.
Sure.
Okay? All right. And the county, Maricopa County, is the number 2 county in the country for sightings. Of 3,125 counties reported into our database, they're the number 2 county in the United States. That's more sightings for that county than 36 individual states.
That's insane. Right. And then so as surprising as it was for me to see Phoenix at the top of the list, then you just kind of got to back up a little bit with put a lens on this and just think about what we're talking about here. And it's like, of course, right? It just makes a lot of sense. Phoenix is in the middle of a bleeping desert. There's so much action going on there. Very little light pollution. Once you get outside of Phoenix in Maricopa County, the sky is incredible, but then you have all of the other things that are going on in Arizona. So it actually makes a lot of sense to me.
Yeah. And we've got drivers. The drivers can be population. People knee jerk on population, but the drivers are population, temperate weather, leisure time, access to broadband, hours of darkness. Okay, those are the major drivers, and all that stuff works out there in Phoenix, Arizona.
And people are outside. They're outside a lot. There's a lot to see. You're always looking, and there you go. But Phoenix, 1,221 sightings over a 20-year period, and with the number 1 ranking.
Well, Maricopa County had 3,342 in that 20-year period.
That's right. And Maricopa County is a friggin' giant, by the way.
Yes.
It's a big county. Now, let me count here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I'm going to say that I am completely surprised with 8 out of 10 of the top 10, with Phoenix being a pretty big surprise. Number 3, which we're going to get to in a second, I think we expected that. But number 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, I count. Number 9 is unspecified somewhere in California. We'll get to that. And then, number 10 is a little bit surprising to me, but it's also what is in the news right now. And that's also pretty enlightening. So let's go through this. Number 2 is New York City with 971. Now, when we talk about New York City, are we talking about Manhattan, or are we talking about a bigger chunk of land?
We're talking all 5 boroughs. Normally, in the past, I only counted New York City as Manhattan, but I got a lot of pushback that the entire incorporated area was, 5 boroughs or 5 counties. So we started counting it, and so it was Phoenix, New York City. It was the ranking on the thing. Now, a lot of people say, well, they got all that light pollution. Well, once you get up above the ground in some of those high-rise apartment buildings, it's a very clear shot to see things.
Some of the most incredible sightings happened right there in New York City. And I always think about, one of my favorite sightings, and that's John Lennon, right? John Lennon with one of the most incredible sightings in history, and his description of that. But that was from the top of a building right there in Manhattan. But 971 sightings, and the light pollution part can come in, and I get that. But when you're talking about Queens and Staten Island and the Bronx, those are definitions only by streets. You're not driving miles through the country to get to these other boroughs. You're just, in some cases, literally, you're at a street light and in the crosswalk.
Now, there's a little glitch with New York. A lot of people would report it as New York, okay, and they would sometimes say New York Bronx, New York Queens, or whatever. Okay,
right.
But if they just said New York City, it kind of rolled up. We had to make the assumption it was Manhattan, but because there was a problem with the database. They don't let you split it out with a little bit more detail, especially a bigger metropolitan area, and that's kind of a shame. I wish the databases would give you a blank there to make a little bit more clarification.
Now, what about Long Island? Is that part of this number?
No. Not really, because remember, this is the city numbers. Now, when it comes to counties, they're number 1 in New York State.
No, you can't get ahead of your skis on me. We got to save some surprises for later.
Oh, we'll save it. Okay.
Now, and so number 3 is Las Vegas. Number 4, Los Angeles. I find that interesting.
The city
of Los Angeles. Seattle, Portland, Chicago, Tucson, and then following up the rear is San Diego. But there is an unspecified location here, somewhere in California.
Okay, let me explain what that is.
Please.
There's one in every state. About 3.5% of people who entered a sighting report, didn't matter whether it's Newfork or MUFON, they simply didn't fill out what the city was. Or they put something in there. My mother told me not to tell you, or the sheriff told me not to tell you, something like that. Or I'm afraid to tell you. And so when there was no description as to what city or what municipality it was, we simply made it unspecified and loaded it into a unknown county for that state. So every state has an unknown county and has the unspecifieds in there. And when I was trying to rank things to actually keep it very honest, I had to leave the unspecified. It rolled up. It just fell where it fell.
Now, when I look at this, we have Los Angeles here. We have San Diego. But that's pretty much it for California. But, if you look at Texas with San Antonio and Austin and how Houston, right? It seems to me that Texas is right there when you break it down, but they have more cities, right? So the number for Texas is actually pretty large.
They had, they got more cities. New York State, give you an example. New York State has like 60 counties. California is very similar. Texas has 256. Now, some of them might just be sagebrush and sand, but they have 256 counties. So it was an issue back when they were drawing county sizes to keep them to a 20-mile area. And Texas is a big place,
It is huge, almost as big as Long Island, and we'll come back to that. That's an inside joke, everybody. But
yep.
But I'm surprised by some of these other cities that round out this top 20. And for the listeners out there, your cities may be here because it rounds out with Houston, Denver, Albuquerque, Orlando, Austin, San Antonio, Miami, Philadelphia, Colorado Springs, Sacramento, Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, Boise, San Francisco, down on the list. I would have thought they would have been higher. Jacksonville, San Jose, and then rounding it out with Indianapolis. When you does any of this surprise you as much as it surprises me in these rankings?
There's a few that surprised the heck out of me. A few years ago, I didn't know how to sort this properly, and there are half a dozen Portlands. Okay, and the number kind of came up there really big until I started running the report in such a way that it would break it out by the state. And Portland, Oregon has a lot of sightings. What was interesting, if you look at it by the year, just for Portland, 2020 was a banner year because they had all the protests and people were outside and things like this, So we were literally able to correlate the higher sightings to the periods of time when there were large amounts of people in the streets.
Now let's talk about that for a second. With the year 2020 and with COVID and people at home, did you see a spike or a decrease in numbers? Anything interesting in a particular month?
Yeah, a couple of things. One, I took 2019 off because I knew the numbers would be coming back later.
Right.
Okay, I had other things I wanted to work on. Early 2020, I started getting phone calls from people. George Knapp called me up from Las Vegas. He said, my phone's ringing off the hook. Would you check things? So I used as a benchmark, I went out to National UFO Reporting Center, and I took a quick look at the first 2 months of the year. And we hadn't had monthly numbers like that since like 2014, 2012. And I'm going, whoa, that's interesting. I have a model that I built. It's pretty accurate. So every time we got a monthly total for 2020, we'd stick it in the model, and we were actually getting a prediction that the year was going to shake out as good as the peak years of the 2000s. What was interesting was that when we were getting ready to go into the lockdown, people had heard me talk about on various radio shows, had heard me talk about the fact that leisure time was a factor. And a lot of fans were calling me up and emailing me and says, hey, we're going into lockdown for a couple months. Here's a perfect laboratory for you to measure this.
It would make sense. Yes.
Yeah. And it did. And we've got a plot in the data I sent you where March and April were through the roof. And that's when we were all locked down. And a lot of people thought everybody was hiding in their house watching streaming TV and eating too much, but we all did. But a lot of people were outside, on the deck, on the patio, working on the lawn. Yeah, I can't go to work, so I might as well do that. Or I'm doing home improvements. We found a lot of that going on. And, the people who report these things the most are smokers and dog walkers. They're considered among the most reliable viewers out there.
And
they're out there every day, day in, day out.
I'm both. So
there you go.
There you go. Now, okay. I'm going to get to the county stuff first or next. But as we move along tonight, what is really interesting here, because you have the data, is we have shapes, we have types, we have that. And we're going to go through that year by year. I find that absolutely fascinating. But you also had to eliminate a lot of data. And that number, you can correct me if I'm wrong, Cheryl, and I probably am, started off at about 160, 170,000, right, was the number. And then through removal of different categories and sightings, that number was reduced to what?
Well, okay, about 50,000.
50,000.
Okay, but I got to be clear on this. The book reflects, 20 years of data, 2001 to 2020,
right.
167,632. Okay, we kept everything. Now, when we're getting into our analysis, a lot of people say, well, you got to get, the way it was always presented to me, hey, did you take out the kooks, nuts, and crackpots?
Right.
That's how it was always expressed to me.
Mm-hmm.
Well, okay, so I always had to test that with people. Well, do I take 50% out? Do I take 20% out? How much do I take out? Finally, just to shut everybody up, I said, let's just take 70% off the top. I don't know which ones they are, but we'll take 70% off the top and we'll keep 30%. What will that give us? And I got the numbers right here. It'll blow your audience's socks off. 167,000, 30% of that is 50,290. Divide that by 20 years, you get 2,515. Divide that by 12 months, you get basically 210. Now, what does 210 tell us? Well, if all 50 states were equal, they are not. But if, for sake of our talk, if all 50 states were equal, every state would have 4 exotic sightings a month, every month for the past 20 years.
And even that, if you stop right there, that's a crazy big number.
Yeah, it is.
That's
scary.
Yeah, that's a crazy big number. Okay, so we're gonna break this down, and now there were also elimination of some types of craft, and I found this pretty interesting too, Cheryl. And I think
this was Linda.
Okay. Oh, you're putting it on Linda.
Oh no! Well, we had talked. We came up with two things. She came up with the secret is in the shapes.
Yes.
And then and to complement that, I came up with the secret is in the tiny numbers.
Now, very controversial, I think, for myself to see some of these categories removed. And I'm going to leave it to you. What was the first craft type that you removed from the data?
Cigar shapes. Cylinder shapes, easily the side of an airplane. I saw one like that today. I thought it was a saucer, and then the plane changed angle ever so slightly, and I could see the wings.
Okay, number 2. You know, there's some people right now that just blew a gasket. Right. Okay, so what was the next one?
I threw out triangles.
Now
that was not my. Okay, Linda said the truth was in the exotic non-aerodynamic shapes, and she said that before we heard from Lou Elizondo.
So the decision behind that's part of it, and is the other consideration here is the TR3B
that's why
secret.
I threw it out.
Right.
Every time I wrote an article about triangles in my column,
right,
there was always be 50 people who would write me and say, "Oh, Cheryl, you dumb bunny, that's TR3B." So I said, "Okay, fine. If that's what you think it is, I'll just eliminate it." So I took out everything that could be even remotely viewed as a conventional aircraft. Okay.
F-117, B-2 stealth bomber.
Exactly.
TR-3B, which it could be a secret access program, advanced. I think that especially when you go back to Belgium, I kind of think things were being tested, and there you go. So we still don't know the bottom line with the TR-3B, but taking it out as something that is extraterrestrial, I think is the right thing to do.
Well, what ended up happening was, as we took these things out, and we had some very interesting, friendly arguments about it here, over coffee. But basically, when we got done, we basically ended up with all the really weird stuff: ovals, circles, squares, triangles, diamond shapes, the changing UFO, that kind of stuff, Saturn-shaped UFOs. And guess what they added up to? 32% of the stuff.
Now, isn't that interesting? Okay, there's okay. So we did cigars, black triangles. What was the third craft?
Well, okay. I said the triangle. Actually, I took that out. So there was the third one right there. Cigar shapes, all that. Let me think for a second. What was one of the other big ones? The blimp.
The blimp. And I find that, okay, so.
Bullet-shaped.
Bullet-shaped. And was flying saucer, like the saucer shape, was that part of the consideration?
I kept that.
You kept that. Okay.
I kept that.
Now, and I'm going to get to the counties here in a second. Everybody can relax, and I'll do that before the break. I'll give you the top 5, and it's very interesting, by the way. In the data, I think that especially everybody, today talking about Tic Tacs, but you have 2 considerations here. You have egg-shaped, and you have oval-shaped. So what would the difference be? Because to me, it seems the same. So why would you put those in 2 different categories?
2 different databases description.
Okay, so they
MUFON or NUFORC.
Right.
Okay.
So in a general sense, we could be talking about the same craft then.
Yeah, very easily.
Okay. All right. So that was a head scratcher for me.
Let me give you a real quick one here. Remember when everything was, all the sightings were really falling off? Peter Davenport was saying somebody's messing with my reporting, all that stuff. Okay. I was at the MUFON convention in Cherry Hill, New Jersey in 2017. And Linda and I took a laptop down there with a small printer. And if you came up to us and told us your state and county, we'd give you a dump for whatever was associated with that county for the 18 years we had at that point. And, Lou was talking to me. We were having a cup of coffee on Saturday morning, and he says, yeah, everything's falling off. I said, yeah, but something, you want to hear something strange? He says, what? He's always got that stoic look, and I said, while everybody's fallen off, 4 shapes are on the rise. And he looks at me funny. He says, what? I said, yeah, whenever the Saturn shape shows up, when you only have about 30 or 40 of them a year, that's the one that's like a half a mile wide. The Japan airline counted it back in 86, whenever that shows up, these other 2 shapes show up. Okay, and it happened to be teardrop shape and egg shape. And the consensus was we saw a higher number of activity with the teardrop shape and the egg shape even more. And I looked at it and I says, if the Saturn shaped ship was like an aircraft carrier, the teardrop would be like a shuttle and the egg shape would be like a scout ship type of thing. And then we also threw in the changing shape as a stealth. And they all had a similar pattern and they all appeared when the Saturn shape was here. And I showed him it was on the rise. And I printed it out, and he looked at it and says, can I have this? And he had this really, really troubled look. He folded it up, put it in his lapel pocket, and took off, So, but that's one of those things that when everybody was saying, oh, everybody went home. No. There were several that were on the rise, and those 4 shapes seem to correlate together.
And you only see that when you compile the data. Right? This would escape everybody unless you're looking at the data and you can see everything line up.
Oh, yeah. Let me give you another spin on that. When you crunch the data a certain way, I've got a chart that I run that goes down one side for 365 days. And then going across the top is 2001 to 2020. So over 12 pages, basically 1 page per month landscape. I printed out 20 years worth of daily sightings. Okay, for every year, for every day, for that 20 years. Okay, one of the things we discovered, the average per day is only about somewhere about 20 a day for the whole country. Okay, and you have people like us, we get requests from these people for television series and things like this, oh, wow, we could do a good story, or a good series, and they always want to do the low-hanging fruit. Roswell, Kecksburg, Stevenson. And I told a group of producers, I've identified 175 places in the country you've never heard of that have nothing going on most of the time that had a one-day thing of 25, 30, 60 sightings 200 sightings in one day when the national average is only about 20, and most states have an average of 2 a week. So nobody was interested. It was pitching these producers was like talking to goldfish. I got an aquarium 60 inches from me, and it's like talking to those fish.
Cheryl, you're the best. You're the best. Okay, we're at a break right here. So I'm going to give everybody, this is the top 5 counties. Los Angeles County, number 1. Maricopa County, number 2. Cook County, Illinois, number 3. San Diego County, California, number 4. And King County, Washington rounds out the top 5. Absolutely incredible data right there. Our guest, Cheryl Costa. The books, the links are over at jimmychurchradio.com. You've got to get yourself a copy of the desk reference. I'll be right back. This is Fade to Black. Stay with us.
Way out here, we listen to Jimmy Church.
You're listening to Fade to Black.
Always on the edge of the hottest alternative talk. Jimmy Church with Fade to Black. KGRARadio.com.
¿Qué tal, mis amigos? Yo soy Mario Carson, el tiburón, y los invito para que escuchen a mi buen amigo Jimmy Church Radio. ¡Claro que sí!
Do you want to be an official Fadernaut? Of course you do. This is Jimmy Church of Fade to Black. Just go to our membership section at jimmychurchradio.com. Fadernauts. When you think about the future of our country and where we're headed, do you wonder about the food supply? I do. Disruptions in the food supply chain could be disastrous, and they usually occur with little warning. That's why the smartest thing you can do today is to stockpile emergency food, water, and other essentials. I personally recommend My Patriot Supply. They're the nation's largest emergency preparedness company, serving millions of customers for more than a decade. In fact, they're the only source my family trusts for our preparedness plan. You should too. Right now, save 20% off a full 4-week supply of delicious meals that provide 2,000 calories a day. Saving 20% helps too, doesn't it? Especially now. So go to preparewithjimmy.com and get ready. That's preparewithjimmy.com. There's no time to lose. Do it now.
So, you love talk radio? Then you'll love TalkStreamLive.com. TalkStream Live is always on, 24/7 with the best streaming talk shows. Find your favorite talkers and discover some new ones. It's free, readily available online or on mobile with any smartphone or tablet. Finding your favorite talk shows all in one place has gotten a whole lot easier. Just go to TalkStreamLive.com. Be sure to download the free apps from Google Play or the iTunes App Store.
You listen to us, and we listen to you. And so does the CIA. KGRARadio.com.
You are listening to Fade to Black with Jimmy Church on the Game Changer Network.
Oi, oi, I'm Reese Evans. You're listening to Jimmy Church. This is Revolution. The revolution will not be televised. The revolution is on radio. Ciao.
Welcome back. Fade to Black. I am your host, Jimmy Church. Tonight, Cheryl Costa is here. Her book, UFO Sightings Desk Reference, is a necessity for everybody in this audience. You need to go and get yourself a copy. The links are over at jimmychurchradio.com. You look at the data, how this has been compiled. I don't know. Cheryl, I got to ask you, did you ever, like, I'm going crazy. This data is just overwhelming. Does it get to that point where, you know, it's black and white, it's data, and it's coming at you, but you've got it broken down in such a comprehensive way? Does it get to be overwhelming?
Yeah. Linda comes home from her day job at the library from second week of January of this year to the first week of May when we put that thing up at Amazon. She'd come home. I'd put in 6, 7, 8 hours working with this data, building the charts and tables and things. And she'd come home and like I was like cross-eyed, you know, just totally squirrely, you know. And it was hard to engage me in a good civil conversation about just things because the numbers were just swirling in my head. And there was no getting away from it. If you wanted to talk to me, that's all that was in my head at the time.
Well, you're going to now that you've got this through 2020. Are you going to constantly now? Is this like the Farmer's Almanac of UFOs? That
no,
you're not going to do it.
Let me explain what we're going to do.
Okay.
I turned 69 a couple of months ago.
You look great, by the way.
Thank you. And the attitude we have right now is that, how do I want to say this? If we were going to do a 5-year update, which a number of people have asked me to do, I said, I'll be 75. Okay. Let me explain something happened. Last summer in 2020, Linda and I knew we were probably going to do a 2020 book. And one of the problems we realized was 17% of the database, people spelt the name of their cities wrong. Okay. And we couldn't sort on it. Okay. So we decided right then and there we were going to fix this. So we got a golden mail. We purchased a golden email list, or not email list, but a cities list with zip codes and all this kind of stuff. Had lat longitude information and zip codes and all that kind of thing. And we set it up so it had the same columns as our database, and we made it a different color and we merged it in. And we could only do, I started working on it in mid-August, second week of August in 2020. And it took me till an average of 3 to 4 days a week working on a day basis, about 1,500 lines a day, because you get squirrely looking at those lines of stuff. And we finished it 650 hours later, the first week of January, which was when I turned around and started generating all the charts for the book. And I already had like a ton of yellow stickies on the wall, exactly how I was going to build the book. And when it got down to about mid-April, I had everything. I'd been going over to Staples with a thumb drive, printing things out. I had essentially a book. If you take all the papers I printed out, now the book is only 1.5 inches thick. Okay, the sample book is 5 inches thick. Okay, so Linda she had to burn some vacation, so she took a whole week of vacation off. Came, and I started laying like certain things. I laid them out on the bed or laid them out on the floor, and she'd look at them and she'd say, "Our secret sauce for this book is the shapes diagrams. Those go after the analysis stuff." And then she's the publisher. So she said, "Okay, we're going to do it like this." So she organized it the way she thought made sense.
And it does. It the way that it's compiled now. So
she's a librarian.
Well, and I'm thinking, I think, okay, 75. I get that. 5. Just give us, 2021, 2022, 2023.
No, we got something better.
Okay.
You're going to love this. And people think I'm crazy to do it. But when we built this book, when we did the first one, we sat down with Word and started assembling it. And she'd ask me for a chart, and I'd make the charts. And we basically built the book up from chapter 1 right up through the last chapter, okay? This time we did something different. I would write an article, I would make a chart, whatever the case was, and I'd burn a PDF of it. And our plan was when we went to go put it together, we would simply take all the PDFs, organize them in a stack, like a stack of cards or a stack of blocks, and throw them in the Adobe Acrobat, and we got a book. Because all Amazon wants to publish the thing is a final one PDF with it all organized in there. So that's how we did it. I didn't start at the beginning. There were charts that I built that were actually more towards the end of intended for the end of the book. So I organized it like that. So we've got a template and actually an industrial process for doing this.
Okay.
People kept asking me, well, can you drill down to the city level with all the shapes? And I said, yeah, we figured it out. We ran the math on it, and it would be the size of 3 Oxford dictionaries deep, 6,800 pages deep, just for a printout of every state, every county, right down to the municipal level with their shapes over that 20-year period. So what we've decided to do is we're going to generate 50 individual state books. Titles are going to be a standard title like UFOs in the skies of California.
Yeah,
UFOs
which
in New
you
York
sent
skies.
me today. Yes.
Okay, you saw a sample.
Yes.
Okay, and we're going to do all the charts exclusively for that state, and just the shapes for that state and the patterns for that state. Okay, we do all that, even that day by day chart just for that state. Okay,
and you're able to do this because the data is compiled. Right.
The data is compiled. It's a matter of running additional reports,
right,
burning them into PDFs, and then just organizing it into a publishable book. And the hardest part, would you believe the hardest part to doing it is making the cover? And we actually had to take about 3 weeks off and figure out an industrial process for how we would burn a cover for this thing. Because if the manuscript for one state is only 10 pages bigger than another state, it requires a completely different cover because of the size differences, okay, of the spine, okay?
Sure.
So we've come up with a standard way of doing it. So we've got a process. So we're going to do 50 individual state books. We're going to take DC and include it in with Maryland. And then what we're going to do is there's 35 shapes. We're going to do 35 specialty shape books.
Now,
So what's going to happen between the 2 reference books and 80 other books? It will be the largest compiled publication of UFO data in human history.
You need a medal. You and Linda deserve medals.
Well, the white book was supposed to be my master's degree, and this pink book is supposed to be my PhD.
You've got it. You've officially got it. Let's go to page 26 if we can.
By the way, these state books are getting ready to come out at a rate of about anywhere from 1 to 4 a month, depending upon the complexity of the stage. California is going to be one of the last ones because it's going to be a bear to do.
Okay. All right. Well, then
it's the number 1 state. It's got 21,000 sightings. The book's going to be over 550 pages, which is almost the limit of what we can print through Amazon print-on-demand printing.
So it'll take you about 2 years to get it all done.
We're saying about 18 months.
Yeah, 18 months.
Okay. Or less if we come up with a little bit better process. The covers, like I said, are the killer. What I've done recently was I figured out what states would be roughly the same size as other states, and I got them in 5 different ranks. So basically, right now it looks like I only have to build about 5 or 6 standard covers, and I just have to change the information on the overlay.
Once the data's in there, it's there.
Yeah,
it's there. Page 26 of the summary. Let's go straight there. Because this is the first chart, but it is the all shapes summary. The title being USA All Shapes of UFOs by year from 2001 to 2020. Again, we get back to this number of 167,632. But this is a very, very revealing and interesting chart. From 2001 to 2007, things were pretty steady and understandable, I should say. I'm going to take a guess here and say an average of 4,000 sightings a year, on average.
Yep, that's about right.
And then 2008 comes along and it doubles, and it stays there until today in 2020. And this is all shapes. This is everything.
Do you know what happened in 2008?
We had the stock market crash, the mortgage banking.
Nope.
I graduated college.
Okay, well, let me tell you what happened. Both, if you split it out both and do a line chart of both MUFON and NUFORC, they're both tracking along, with MUFON being a little smaller than about a half of what NUFORC was. In 2008, there was a TV program that did a different weird topic every week on Discovery Channel, that type of thing. And one particular episode was about UFOs, and they highlighted MUFON. Suddenly, people knew where to report, and suddenly the numbers went through the roof. And it jumped up in 2008, and it stayed pretty level thereafter, and just ramping up with parallel to NUFORC. It's a 60-40 ratio. NUFORC's about 60% of the data, and MUFON's about 40%.
Now, before we get into these numbers, that's a very interesting point, though. Peter Davenport is great, right? Is he great to work with?
I've never talked to him.
He just sends you the data.
No.
How do you get it?
I take it. I let him know that I was going to harvest it off his website.
Yeah, he's
public data.
Peter
now,
is
MUFON. I have to go and beg borrow, but I've got a good. Well, the first time they put me through the ringer.
That was my next question. I mean, how we use it.
In 2016, they put me through the ringer.
Right.
Finally, Linda got on. She's an executive. She got on, did executive talk with them, and I had a file in 10 minutes. You know. But I went round and round with these people for 3 months, you know. But now after the first book came out and they realized how cool it was and what it was, I just simply call them up, say, I need a dump of this, and they give it to me. You know?
Right on.
Because they know I'm not taking any confidential data. I'm not going to out anybody. I only want numbers. In fact, first thing I get rid of is the description of the sighting. I don't need it. I only want what, when, where, what shape, and what state.
Now, the reason why I'm so interested in the all-shape summary, it's also the data that follows that when we start to break down the shapes. But there we had that big jump in 2007 and 2008 where the numbers virtually doubled, going from around 4,800 or so, right in there, to 8,800. 9,000 and 8,000, 9,000, all the way through 2010. But 2012 rolls around, and they double again. That's a big jump if you're going to go from 8,600 to 14,000 sightings. Now, how do we explain that jump, besides being such a cool year of 2012?
Well, there was all these television specials on talking about the Mayan calendar and all this kind of stuff, you know. So there was a tendency to be again, leisure time people out there looking up. Okay. But what's interesting is 2012 was not the hot year for some states. When you actually take a look at it on an individual state level, 2012 was not the hot year. 2013 was, or 2015 was. It isn't always uniform. Lumping everybody into the national doesn't always tell you what the detail is at a state.
Now, we're going to break this down, everybody, individually by shapes, because that is one of the most interesting things you can look at. You can check it all out in the book. But from 2014, Cheryl, and I know that you find this as interesting as I do, all the way to 2018, a very steady decline, and we had this dip. And I remember having Peter Davenport on the show and the media covering, this decline in sightings. That's not necessarily the case, but your data does show going from 14,000, this peak in 2014 to 2018, 5 years, it dropped as low as just under 7,000 in 2018.
About 30% a year.
Yeah.
Until it bottomed out in 2017, and then in 2018 I saw a slight tick upwards with MUFON data, ever so slightly. If you did the line chart, and that's something I didn't publish, and I saw a line chart. So that's when I told everybody, I said, guys, it's going to come back over the next 2 years, trust me, and nobody believed me. So
and it did. 2019 and 2020, a radical jump. from 6,900 in 2018 to almost 10,000 in 2019 and over 11,000 in 2020.
Best year since 2012.
Yeah, incredible.
In fact, early in the year, it looked like it was going to be the best year since 2014, but it fell off a little bit, and that was partly impacted by, I believe that we did have some COVID impact in the negative sense. Okay.
Now, one of the most interesting charts, and they're all interesting if you just take a minute to see how this data can be extrapolated and laid out. But what is the 24-hour chart from 2001 to 2020, the breakdown of what time of the day and where the sightings are at? Explain this to everybody. Explain it to me like I'm 5 years old, because this is a great chart, but I want everybody to understand exactly what we're talking about.
Okay, what this was we built an algorithm that would round out whatever the hourly time for each sighting was, and so the whole database had a thing in there for its hours. So and we did it military time. So it is, midnight was 2400, and so you have 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock, all the way through the day. Again, military time. So afternoon it becomes 13 o'clock, 14 o'clock, that kind of thing, and it goes all the way up. And what we discovered was between 4:30 in the afternoon to 11:30 represented about 75% of the sightings of a single day, and probably the bulk of that was occurring between 8:30 at night and 10:30 at night, essentially civil bedtime, so to speak. And then it falls off radically after about 11:30, midnight, 1 o'clock in the morning, and as it steeps down, there's some funny bumps. Typically, there's a bump around about 4:30, 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock in the morning. Okay, if you go to Las Vegas, there's a bump at 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, and 4 o'clock. I had a Vegas investigator look at it and said, "Oh, that's when the clubs and shows let out." Okay, again, leisure time. Okay?
Right.
And so the rest of the days from midnight to about 4 o'clock in the afternoon only represents about 25% of the sightings throughout the day. And you can see a lot of human activity type things because there's a serious dip between 7 and 9 o'clock in the morning. That's morning drive time. Who's going to report UFOs while you're stuck in traffic?
Right. But how do you explain this 5 a.m. bump?
Initially, we explained the 5 a.m. bump is that for going out and cleaning off the car, or if it's like winter weather, that type of thing, going out, taking the dog for a walk, going out for that first smoke with the dog, that kind of thing. We had a bump at 3 o'clock in the morning in Arkansas. I was giving a presentation at the Ozarks presentation, and I couldn't explain what that 3 o'clock one was. I had 12 guys come up to me afterwards and said, "We're all chicken farmers, and that's when we prep our birds to go to market."
That explains a lot.
Okay, but now that was the easy answer. I found out working on this book, I started noticing if you look at the hourly shapes, with the shapes, the hours pattern with the individual shapes, you start seeing some funny spiking down around that 4 to 6 o'clock in the morning time frame. Well, I started looking at individual shapes and started noticing that some shapes peak at that hour.
And we're going to get to that. It is so interesting when you see it broken down.
If you go to some states, it only appears like that in some states, too.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's so interesting. Now, staying on this 24-hour, it's so smooth between 7 a.m. and there isn't anything radical, but it's also...
You know what the magic of that hourly chart is?
Yes.
All the naysayers, all the Neil Geist Tyson kind of guys, all saying, all these UFO sightings by the civilians, they're unreliable. It's all white noise. If it was all white noise, this would all be white noise. This is a consistent pattern with every state, every shape.
Very smooth. It's very smooth. And the increase, the peak, I would not discount this at all being 9 o'clock in the evening. That absolutely makes sense. It's the smoothness of the increase in the peak and then coming back down. That just makes perfect sense.
that peak triangle,
Yeah.
it does vary from state to state. Some of it happens between 6 o'clock and 8 o'clock. It moves a little bit. It gets narrower. It gets tighter. It rounds out at the top of some states, but it's pretty consistent. The overall model is pretty consistent.
Now, let's go to UFO shapes and changing UFOs. And I'm looking at the clock here. We've got so much to cover. We knew we'd run out of time. Right, and we're already running out of time. Let
me give you one tidbit before we go to break. The tidbit is, and somebody else was asking me about this. What did you learn most about the shapes besides these hourly patterns? I said shapes have seasons.
Oh.
Some are only in summer, some are in the fall, some peak in the last 3 months of the fall going into winter and then fall off. Some we see mostly in the winter. It's weird. Who knew they had shapes?
Right.
Or seasons, rather.
Now, in the changing UFOs chart, again, this is 2001 to 2020. What's the quick definition of a changing UFO?
Dr. Laval. Dr. LaValle pointed it out. He said you can be looking at it and you go to line up your equipment and then it looks like something else. Now, me, military type person, I'm looking at it and say, wow, what a stealth system.
Right.
1 minute you're looking at it, maybe it's got some kind of AI computer in there that has got telepathic capability, knows we're looking at it and changes the appearance in our minds or something, but it changes shape. But the goofy thing about the changing shape UFO is if you look at that line over the 1 year period, it is almost flat. It is consistent. It is as regular as a scheduled flight.
Except for 3 different years. Where, we can count 2022 as well. But 2008, we just went over that. 2012 and 2014, spikes in changing UFOs. The rest of it, pretty smooth for 20 years.
Yeah. And in fact, if you notice the numbers there, they average between 79 and about 170, and the average is about 123 a year.
That's right. It's right there. 104, 121, 107. And then boom, 2008, 148, 2012, 170.
Look at the monthly chart. Look at the monthly chart. Look how flat that is.
Flat. It's flat. It's now, okay. Now, let's, the other part to this, though, if we go to the 24-hour chart for the changing UFOs, you can almost virtually, except for hour 17, which would be 1, 2, 3, 4,
5 o'clock.
5 o'clock in the afternoon. Crazy spike there. But the rest of it, you can almost overlay the all shapes chart.
Yeah.
Well,
sometimes the hourly chart gets a little rickety because of the smaller number of sightings. Remember, we only got about 2,400 sightings to have sample points from. So sometimes they get a little rickety. But notice that that window between 3 o'clock in the morning and 8 o'clock in the morning, it jumps up significantly.
It does.
That's one of those examples I was telling you about. That there's something going on at that hour of the morning.
It could be dog walking smoke break. I'm with you on that.
It could be.
Yeah.
There's also, you look at Texas, there's an awful lot of industry that has people outside with cattle and things like this, and it does something very similar with other shapes. But you have to look at Texas to get that kind of consistency.
Now I've got 1 minute.
Go ahead.
Cone-shaped UFOs. Describe a cone-shaped UFO to me.
It's cone. It's cone.
Ice cream cone?
Kind of like a pointed ice cream cone.
Pointed ice cream cone.
And if you notice, 2008, there was a rocket launch on the East Coast out of the Chicoutimi base down in southern Maryland, Virginia area. And there was a rocket launch, and half the East Coast saw it, and it was described as a cone shape.
So that's why we have this 108 number?
Yeah. And most of it was reported in the National UFO Reporting Center, and they realized it was a rocket launch. In fact, if you Google 2009 cone-shaped UFO, you can probably find tons of things saying, "Oh, rocket launch," There was one in California. It's one of the Falcon rockets.
Yeah,
Had a date
I
like
saw
too.
that. Yeah, I shot video of that. Is still, I've got to take a break right here, Cheryl. But that day, I remember jumping out of the car and looking and thinking to myself, "Here we go." But then I saw the different stages separate, and I just kind of wiped my brow. But it stayed up there for quite a while, and all the traffic pulling over and people jumping out of their cars, and it was pretty incredible. But it wasn't Independence Day. Let's take our break right here. Our guest tonight, Cheryl Costa. I am your host, Jimmy Church. What a great show tonight. And again, the books are available with the links over at jimmychurchradio.com. UFO Sightings Desk Reference. We'll be right back.
Hi everybody, this is Rob Halford, the Metal Guard on jimmychurchradio.com.
This is KGRA Digital Broadcasting Station. Salt Lake City, Utah. Van Buren, Arkansas.
Why is it we're not very good with our health regimen until it's too late? We don't put oil in the car until the engine blows up. When the body's out of balance, your health is not so good. Give your body some love. Log on to GetTheT.com. That's GetTheT.com. Try our Life Change Tea, which cleanses you from harmful intruders. A clean colon is one of the ways to bring the body in balance. We also carry organic supplements to help you get where you need to go. So do your body a favor. Log on to GetTheT.com. That's GetTheT.com. You can even visit our sales page to save some dough. Does anybody call money dough anymore? Anyway, if you're looking for short, helpful health tips, go to YouTube and punch in Health Matters Now. That's Health Matters Now. So, log on to GetTheT.com, shop, get balanced, then learn some cool tips at Health Matters Now. You'll be glad you did. That's GetTheT.com.
Your contact for current news and trending topics. KGRARadio.com.
This is Jimmy Church of Fade to Black, and I only drink Fade to Black blend coffee from River Moon. Just click on the River Moon Coffee banner at jimmychurchradio.com. Promo code F2B Blend.
This is the only way forward.
This is Fade to Black. Make contact. KGRARadio.com.
When you're in the house for longer periods of time, you can see them flying or running across the floor. Ooh, yuck. They're unhealthy, gross, and disgusting. Bugs. I loathe bugs. We keep a clean home, but occasionally bugs show up. Well, I found something that is tougher than bugs. Orange Guard. On contact, it kills hidden bugs, including ants, roaches, and fleas. Plus, Orange Guard is a residual repellent. All of the ingredients of Orange Guard are on the FDA generally recognized as safe list. Orange Guard may be used around food, humans, and pets. It comes with a 30-day money-back guarantee. Orange Guard, available at orangeguard.com, Whole Foods, and Ace Hardware.
Gold loves chaos, uncertainty, and disarray. History shows us what gold does when people aren't sure about the government, the stock market, their jobs, or their retirement savings. Our national debt is skyrocketing. Gold and other precious metals are a defense measure against inflation and a stock market that might take years to recover. So what can you do right now to protect yourself? Call United Gold Group. We offer gold and other precious metals delivered securely within 72 hours. Are you worried about the stock market? We can also help you set up a real gold or silver IRA or a 401k. Safe and secure. United Gold Group makes gold ownership affordable. Call now and get up to $2,500 in free gold or silver with a qualified IRA. Call 800-753-8534. That's 800-753-8534 or visit UnitedGoldGroup.com.
You want to know a secret?
I love ponies. I really love ponies. I'm serious. I couldn't stay sane without ponies to brush.
Why fade to black? Because you never got that pony, damn it.
This is Fade to Black with Jimmy Church on the Game Changer Radio Network and KGRA, the Global Radio Alliance.
Welcome back. Fade to Black. I am your host, Jimmy Church. Our guest tonight, Cheryl Costa. More with Cheryl in just a second, but I got to talk to you about Virtual Shield. Virtual Shield VPN. The links are in the video description box below. Go and click and get yourself Virtual Shield VPN. Everybody today needs their own VPN. Security, your internet search traffic, your location, a strict no logs policy. You need your privacy today. It's more important than ever. Hackers are everywhere. You need your stuff confidential. It's all simple to do. Click on the video description box below. Virtual Shield VPN. Also, virtualshieldvpn.com/fade to black. Either way, go and you will get Virtual Shield for 50% off today. A strict no-log policy, encrypted servers around the world. You need to protect yourself just like I am right here in the bunker. Virtual Shield VPN. Our guest tonight is Cheryl Costa. The book, there's a couple of editions, and also her other new book that was just published, the UFO Beat, about her New York Skies column. And so everything is available over at jimmychurchradio.com. Just click on the links. And I want to get to the next chart, Cheryl, if we can, which I find interesting. These two, which I think are similar for a lot of different reasons, but I found something interesting here I want to go over with you. In which the first one is egg-shaped UFOs. Now, as soon as I looked at this, I immediately thought about the Tic Tac, and would there be an awareness of Tic Tac sightings, and would that fall under egg-shaped UFOs? And then I go and I look at the data here. And the New York Times article was released in December of 2017, and there is a radical jump there between 2016 and 2017, and it stayed there through 2018, egg-shaped UFOs, a huge jump. Now, am I making this connection because it's obvious? What do you think?
Okay, I've listened to a couple of the pilots describe these things, the Tic Tac. I've had them describe it. It's about 40 feet long, and it's sort of shaped like a butane tank, And,
yes.
And so when I heard that, I didn't think egg. I was thinking the rectangles, to be honest with you.
But we have this jump, right? 2016 to 2017, going from 60 and 80 sightings a year, doubling to 128.
Yeah, well, remember I told you the egg shape seems to show up when the Saturn shapes show up?
Yes.
And we think that the egg shape is a utility ship, kind of like a little scout ship. And that's we see activity that would be consistent with like an aircraft carrier is a Saturn shape, and these are the little helicopters that go off and do little observation missions and things like this.
Now we'll get to the Saturn shape, which is very interesting, in just a second. Now let's talk about, again, we keep going back to 2008, right? 2012. 2014, we're seeing the same commonality.
Those were peak years in almost all categories.
Right.
2008 had a lot of stuff going on. A lot of people don't. In fact, there's like one state has these tiny little numbers throughout the year, but 2008 was almost off the chart in a couple of states. It's weird.
And when we look at the monthly chart, which we haven't talked about yet tonight, but the monthly chart here does need to be mentioned, because the monthly chart over 20 years is pretty dang flat, except for July. Right?
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
And you're looking at so much data here. Why would we see a huge, obvious peak? It turns this into a bell curve almost. It is so high up in July.
Well, I don't see that's always puzzled me. Now, I've had some people look at the July hits on a bigger scale. If you print out a daily chart for any state or for the United States, for any year, July 4th goes through the roof. And of course, you would say, hey, maybe it's all misidentifications on the 4th of July, okay? Fireworks, that kind of thing.
Right.
But I have been at fireworks displays. After the fireworks display was done, baseball game, baseball team we go and support. We watched the fireworks after the doubleheader. And we let everybody go out there and get into traffic. We figured we'll just sit here and wait till traffic kind of shakes out a little bit, finish our beers. And we looked up, and Linda said, look at that. Now, remember, there's no fireworks going on at this point, okay? There's 2 fireballs parked up there, okay? And then they both went, whoosh, whoosh, gone, okay? And we've seen this sort of thing. We've heard other stories of people saying those guys like to come down and watch our fireworks.
That's actually pretty interesting right there.
Remember, they're studying us. I say
Yeah.
there's like an anthropology side of it, study our human activity.
Well, look, if I'm cruising around in my little starship and I'm looking out the window and I see what's going on, and not necessarily New Year's, right, or the 4th of July, but after a baseball game, I'm going to go check that out. Sure, why not?
You mentioned a good thing, New Year's. Okay, I didn't understand how come southern states had January 1st and December 31st spikes in sighting reports. Well, some people from down south reached out to me again as a columnist and said, in southern states we have fireworks on New Year's Eve and on New Year's Day, and it's pretty clockable. And apparently, you have that in California because they have a similar pattern.
Very interesting. And now, what about oval UFOs? And again, we discussed this earlier, but as I look at the data here, again, the difference between oval UFOs and egg-shaped is what?
Significant. It's let me I have to rotate back and forth between the two. Well, you'll notice that the egg shape is very irregular over a number of years. If you notice that oval shapes ramp up in 2000, start ramping up in 2008, and they round off and peak up in the 2011 through 2014, 15 timeframe, and then they fall off like everybody, and they go in the toilet around 2018, and now they're back.
Yeah, now they're back. And very smooth, except for if we look at 2008 and 2012 once again, but very smooth, very steady climb until 2014, and that steady decline to 2018, and then boom, 2019, 2020. It's a crazy town.
It was a fall off of about 30% a year.
Yeah. Very interesting to see this compiled like that. And then again with oval shape, we have that same monthly reference in July. The rest of the year, very smooth. The same peaks on the 24-hour cycle. We've got that 5 a.m. I'm serious, man. Something's going on at 5 a.m. Cheryl,
we're running some. We're playing with some of the reports because we're trying to understand what that is. Like I said, it varies from that 5 a.m. varies from state to state in magnitude and in width. Does it start at 3 o'clock in the morning and go to about 5:30, 6 o'clock, or is it just between 4 and 5? We've seen different patterns there. The western states seem to have a bigger peak than do the eastern states. When we do our shapes book, we're probably going to do an extensive study at that point.
Now, rectangle UFOs, one of my favorites, and here we go. This is some of the most revealing data yet, and especially when we go to the 24-hour times. We'll get to that in just a second. 2012, to see that kind of jump with rectangle UFOs, right? But steady, just steady, all the way down, going back to 2001. The same jump expected, 2019, 2020. But again, what is going on with this before we get to the 24-hour cycle? Because we get to the monthly part of this, it is different from everything else that has been presented so far. Something is going on with rectangle UFOs, Cheryl.
Yes. One thing to notice, every one of the shapes, February is not an issue. February is a dip for every single state in the union. Okay. July, as you can see, is a high peak, but notice it didn't fall off with July.
Not at all.
It ramps off and holds out through the fall.
Right.
So is this something people see more during the fall leaf season? We don't know, but all we know is it is more. This is one of those seasonal ones where it starts in the midsummer and holds out right out until about the end of October, and then it falls off.
Yeah, well, the first half of the year, low numbers, right? Yeah. July and forward, they're double, if not almost triple, than the first 6 months of the year. It's the exact opposite of the first 3 or 4 shapes that we looked at. Very interesting. And then probably more interesting is the 24-hour military chart here, because 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 a.m., 8 a.m., 9 a.m., up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down, where none of this is in the other charts.
No, it's not. It's really a weird shape, and that's why I was thinking these things were like the Tic Tacs, but that's just my own personal opinion. Because like the guy said, they look like a butane tank. And if you look at a Tic Tac, for the most part, it's less an oval and more of a square.
Sure.
A square in the sense of like a candy bar square type of thing. Like a Hershey bar or something like that. That's what they're describing versus an oval being more like an egg shape kind of thing.
Now, when you put the data together, I'm going to stay on this chart for a second, the rectangle 24-hour chart. The numbers are not going to lie. All you are doing is plugging in the numbers. And when you see this between 1 and 2 a.m., down, it goes to 3, up, goes to 4 a.m., down, goes to 5 a.m., back up, 6 down, 7 up, 8 down, 9 up. That's not a coincidence. It's not.
No, it's not. It's not. And the funny thing was, we looked at it from the standpoint of when do most people, like in an industrial environment, overnight shift. I used to be an off-shift worker, and I was, and we had certain break times. Typically, it's 2, not 3. So it certainly wouldn't have one at 4. So there's this, and you're getting out at 6, from the overnight shift, the midnight to 6 shift. So it's weird. I've not understood it very well.
No, that right there doesn't make sense. When you look at the other 24-hour chart, I mean, it's just, okay, yeah, so we got a peak at 5 a.m. That's consistent, but the rest of it is nice and level, very smooth, and then you get to the rectangle, and it looks like a sawtooth.
Yeah, and it's flat through after 8 o'clock in the morning. It's flat till 5 o'clock at night.
Yeah, 5 p.m. Yeah, very crazy. That's a great chart. Very eye-opening. Now, okay, let's. Now we're at Saturn-like UFOs, and this may be the most radical chart yet put together. But Saturn-like UFOs, right there, we need to stop and explain. You brought up Japan Airlines over Alaska. I think that's a really good comparison, which was always described as a walnut, right? So you've got this extension around the circumference, an extended size of this. So help everybody understand, this isn't a UFO with rings around it.
No. It looks more like a walnut. And the little dips out at the sides where it kind of comes out were considered to be 2 to 3 lengths of a 747, and that's about a 290-foot aircraft. So it's big, and all the way across, it was probably about somewhere between 4,300 and 5,000 feet wide.
Now,
and it had all the agility of his aircraft. He had trouble keeping out of its way because it had as much or better agility than he did.
Still one of my favorite cases of all time, and one of the most documented. And you've got the FAA involved, the radar stuff, of course, the pilot's account of everything, but we have all of the data that backs up that sighting. It's an incredible sighting. But if you now move this over to worldwide sightings and look at these numbers, Japan Airlines wasn't the only time something like this was sighted. And these numbers are very, very telling. There were 2 sightings. You're not going to expect 1,000 sightings a day with something like that. But we have 2 in 2001, 3 in 2002 through 2004, a jump to 8 in 2005.
There's that 2008 thing.
Yep. And so we're right there. 2007, 11, 2008, 32. It tripled. It's incredible to me. Incredible. And it stayed steady. It stayed steady. 2000.
Yeah, relative, a little up and down, but relatively flat from 2008 through about 2005, and then it took off. 2006, 2007, 2008 are double. So we're going from numbers in the mid 20s, suddenly jumping up into the 50s and 60s.
Yeah, well, and if you think about it, 2004.
This is the chart I showed Lou Elizondo that got him upset.
Right. Well, if you go 2004, there's 3. 5 years later, in 2008, there's 32. That's 10 times. That's a tenfold increase. And it stays steady all the way to 2015, where your average is about 25 per year of a ginormous craft.
Yeah, and it's funny. I've had people say, well, maybe a bunch of people got together on the internet and faked all this. I said, this data is reflecting individual sightings. Most people, MUFON and NUFORC don't even know these charts because they don't organize their data this way.
Right. Now, how do you explain the very unusual, ginormous increase between 2004 and 2018? Because that goes into serious crazy town.
Well, notice everybody else, but if you look at everybody else was in decline. So it's like these guys, it's like the old song from West Side Story, the Jets are in town, So it's like these guys came into town and everybody bugged.
Yeah, it's fascinating. And then we didn't get the jump in 2019 and 2020. It chilled out to where it was going back to 2008.
And so they went away and everybody else came back.
Yeah, very interesting. Very interesting.
Notice that their season happened to be July and September.
Now, let's go to the 24-hour chart on this.
I got to warn you, the Saturn shape only had 455 in 20 years. So it's going to be a little jagged because we don't have a lot of data points to work with. But again, it's pretty telling when you look at it.
Yeah. And we can always go and with confidence, between 8, 9 o'clock and 12 midnight. Okay, that's going to make sense, and it does. But here,
the daytime sightings are outrageous.
We've got 3 a.m., 5 a.m. once again,
10 a.m. in the morning,
10 a.m. Just very interesting. And so. 2 sightings at 1 a.m. and then 2 sightings at midnight, and then everything in between is it's just interesting. And this is such a big craft, It's unreal. Okay.
And the goofy part though is because a lot of these sightings these bumps were seen throughout the the daytime hours, or actually, I shouldn't say daytime, from 1 o'clock in the morning till 5 o'clock at night, there's some serious sighting jumps, even though they're small in number. They're significant because the valleys are only onesie-twosies, and the other peaks are like 7, 8, 9, 10, and they're happening during daylight hours. That's significant.
That is, and we always say, I do, the daytime sighting is the holy grail, right?
Yeah,
nighttime's, but here we have these a very significant amount of these sightings of such a big craft happened clearly right in the middle of the day.
One of the things that threw me a curve with this, every other shape has a serious dip in February. Notice it's flat. January, February, March, April. We get a seasonal jump in June, July, August, jumps again in September, and then it bottoms out in November. Who knew?
I love looking at, I'm such a black and white guy, and you see everything presented like this. It's so much fun. So much fun. Now, sphere UFOs. Now, this is what I personally have seen the most of. Oh, you don't have a beer can UFO category. I think you're going to have to add that.
That's in the cylinder. That's in the cylinders.
Okay, that's in the cylinders.
Sphere. Okay, sphere UFO. Okay, a couple of weeks ago we had the thing with the USS Omaha.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, had the sphere UFO from 2019, that picture of it.
Mm-hmm.
And I had a reporter call me up from out west someplace and said, hey, are sphere UFOs something? I said, yeah, it's the number 3 silhouette that's reported. We had like 17,500 of them in 20 years, and the guy about fell off his chair.
And it's what I've seen the most. I've had hundreds of these sightings. And clearly, the numbers represent this too as well. This is a big chunk of the data, but this is a smoother chart, except for July. But everything else, it's a smoother chart than everything else. It's just smooth as glass, all times of the day, same peaks, but nothing radical. It is just very, very consistent. Even from 2001 to 2020. There isn't anything really radical here. We have a steady rise and a steady decline, but nothing extreme, Cheryl. How do you explain that?
I don't. To some degree, I think it's because we have so many sightings to work with. The real number is 17,113.
Yes.
So we've got a lot of data points that allows things to kind of even out a little bit.
Yeah. Very, very, very smooth. Again, big chunk of daytime sightings here. I mean, that's a lot.
But notice the window in the evening though is narrower.
Yeah. Oh, you're talking about between now it's more like a 10, 11, 9.
It's between about 7 o'clock at night and about 11.
Yeah. Very sharp rise. And decline. Very sharp rise. Now, teardrop UFOs, and some would say that this could fall into a cone category and possibly even a triangle category. How do you separate it?
Me personally, I've looked at it as a classic teardrop because it's round in it's a blunt round on one end and it tapers off to the back, and versus a triangle, which would be pointed towards the front and larger in the back. That's the way I interpreted it. Again, if you plot it on a chart with the Saturn in the egg shape, you see where it's following the Saturn shape, but in higher numbers, to show a higher degree of activity.
Yes. And how do you explain? I've got 60 seconds before the break.
Go ahead.
Why don't teardrop UFOs like the month of August? Right? That's just a crazy drop off.
But remember, the Saturn shape had a peak in July and in September, so it's just following the same peak as the Saturn.
Let me go back. They're identical.
Yeah.
Oh, there you go. It's the same chart.
Yeah.
Yeah, isn't that interesting? Okay, we've got triangle UFOs coming up after the break, and then I'm going to spend a little time on this, But there's another part to all of this, Cheryl, that I want to get to, which is we're going to go back to page 4, and we're going to go to the year and our cyclical numbers that are every 6 to 8 years. And we'll do all of that next. Probably one of the most revealing things in all of this data. And I can't explain it. This is Fade to Black. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Our guest tonight, Cheryl Costa. The books are available over at jimmychurchradio.com. The Amazon links are right there. This is Fade to Black on the Game Changer Network and KGRA, the planet. We're heading to overtime next with Cheryl Costa. Stay with us.
Here, and you are listening to my boy Jimmy Church on jimmychurchradio.com.
Despite popular opinion, reading a book will not make you smarter.
But listening to Jimmy Church will.
This is Jimmy Church of Fade to Black, and I take Life Change Tea supplements every single day. It's what I do. Click on their banner at jimmychurchradio.com. When you take the beans from Central America with dashes of Indonesian and African mixed in and then roasted to the dark side of Fade to Black, you create the ultimate brew of fringe. Introducing the Fade to Black blend from Rivermoon Coffee. Yes, Rivermoon's darkest customized roast was created for the love of Fade to Black. The alchemy of masterful roasting and smoking the beans is in every sip of this full-bodied, dark Java. I need my coffee dark, deep, with distinct bittersweet chocolate highlights, just like the bunker. Leaning further into the darkness of the roast is Fade to Black blend from Rivermoon Coffee. Just click on the banner at jimmychurchradio.com and use the promo code F2BBLEND for 15% off of your order today.
This is Billy Carson with ForbiddenKnowledge.tv. Forbidden Knowledge TV has just reached its 1-year anniversary. That's right, 1 year. And as a show of appreciation, we are giving all new subscribers a free 30-day trial of ForbiddenKnowledge.tv. That's 30 days to binge watch thousands of movies, documentaries, conferences, workshops, lectures, yoga classes, meditation courses, and so much more. So log on to ForbiddenKnowledge.tv from your computer or mobile device, or get the Forbidden Knowledge TV app on Apple TV, Roku, Amazon, iTunes, or Google Play today, and use coupon code 30daysfree. That's coupon code 30 days free on ForbiddenKnowledge.tv today.
Are you intrigued by Paranormal Talk Radio? You'll love the new Paranormal Radio app from TalkStream Live. You'll find a great selection of talk shows covering UFOs, ghosts, strange phenomena, and much more. Download the Paranormal Radio app now and start listening to the very best in paranormal talk entertainment, including the network you're listening to right now, the Paranormal Radio app, free in Google Play and the iOS App Store.
Erica, Brittany, Gabby, and you're listening to JimmyChurchRadio.com.
It's not a lifestyle we chose. We were born this way. KGRARadio.com.
This is KJCR at JimmyChurchRadio.com.
Welcome back. Fade to Black. I am your host, Jimmy Church, heading into overtime. Cheryl Costa is here. Cheryl gave me the warning this afternoon. Jimmy, we're not going to have enough time. I'm here. I said, good. One of my favorite things, Cheryl, is plain and simple, a documentary. historical documentary. That's where, nonfiction books, data, learning, history. That's exactly what we have here. This is just an incredible compilation of data, and the way that you put it together, pragmatic, it makes sense, but it's also very telling and very revealing. And going to these first two charts that you presented to me today, the first one being 40 years of UFO sighting, 40 years, okay, of UFO sighting reports, combined data from NUFORC and MUFON. And then the second chart is 60 years. Now, the first thing that stands out, and you can clearly see it, before we get to the 60-year chart and talk about the phenomena that happened in 2001, but the 40-year chart, you can see a very obvious cyclical sighting pattern here. Now, I know that you've thought about this an awful lot. What can we deduce from this kind of cycle?
Well, I've looked at this thing a couple of different ways. We did some research on it. And again, there seems to be this two things. The obvious thing is that there's a sort of a generational interest thing going on every 6-7 years. Okay, remember I said earlier in the program, Disney used to bring out its classic movies every 7 years. Right. So a new audience of kids coming up get to see it. And until such time as we got DVDs and all that kind of stuff. But even there, they've taken some of them back into the vault, and they won't bring them out for a few years, and then they'll have some kind of Jubilee edition or something. So there's some of that, and so we seem to think that there's just interest, and that's the easy one. The other one seems to be. I struggle with this. That there is some type of pattern with the UFOs themselves, okay, of just not being present. We joke about it in this household. Maybe they have to go back and get They have to go back and get funding for their research here or something like this. Mm-hmm. We don't know, but it's awfully strange that this is a repeatable pattern. And again, I have these skeptics come to me. Oh, it's all random stuff. Not when you show
that's not random. No,
baby, it's not.
You got 13,000. You got 13,000 combined sightings. That's a lot of data points.
13,000 for the 1960 to 2000, and then we added it in with the 167,000. That gives us over 80,000, and you see a 60-year cycle there going. But the little snake going across the yard, and then it goes into the 2000s, and it just gets bigger. But it's the same pattern.
It's the same pattern, and you can clearly see it. Now, you bring up, if we bring up some seminal science fiction films, right? Let's just, 1968, 2001, A Space Odyssey, right?
Yep.
That's a peak year. It's a peak year. It's right there, Cheryl. You might be right. Yeah. 1977, 78, Star Wars, right?
Yep.
Well, there it is. But
Close Encounters of the Third Kind should be in there someplace.
Yeah.
77, something like that.
Well, and look at the dip for 1984, Empire Strikes Back, because that movie kind of sucked. So that was no, I'm kidding.
Yeah.
I'm kidding everybody. But yeah, but the cycle, the peak and valley is there. It's smooth up and smooth down. The data points are indicating the trend. And I'm not sure what it is, but it's just an obvious up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down, all the way through to 2020. Now, let's go to the 60-year cycle before we get to 2001, because that's an obvious thing, and everybody's going to look at that and say, holy crap, what went on? But if you look, and you go back before that, and you look at the 60-year, you can still see, even though the reporting numbers are low, you've got the same up, down serpent pattern clearly represented there. It's obvious.
Yeah, and no, I've had people try to tell me that the pattern isn't there from 2001 to about 2008. If you really stand back from it, remember we had an increase of people reporting because of more people getting on broadband. But if you actually stand back and look at it, you can actually see a bump and a bump, you know. So it's there.
No, it
it's
is
just
clearly there.
Harder to see. And when you actually print it out with a line chart instead of a bar chart, it's really obvious.
Now, I know you say broadband, and broadband has to have something to do with it. And websites became easier to create, and the web itself was more accessible. But the web was there in 1995, you know.
Yes, I know. Okay, well, I can talk to that. The reportings prior to about early 80s was pretty much faxes calling into. You saw somebody on the news, hey, this guy out in Ohio is collecting sightings, you know, and people start calling him into his answering machine, sending him fax, sending him news clippings. But remember, after 68, after the Condon report, newspapers stopped reporting UFO sightings. So that was an impact. But by about the middle 80s, we were on CompuServe, AOL, that kind of thing.
1990 to 1995. Yeah.
Okay, well, I was on it in the mid 80s. Okay. So the deal is as that helped people report stuff to some degree, and then as we got up to started getting off dial-up in the mid 1990s type of thing, and people started and it was happening to these databases, so they put interfaces in the early 2000s, around 2004 for both of them, one year or the other. But basically, once they put web interfaces in, it started going up. Now, that's in the established UFO community. As soon as somebody did a television a program about MUFON 2008, boom, it shot up. And we see this also every time somebody like us, if I get asked to talk on some kind of what I'm going to call mainstream show and tell people where they can report this stuff, suddenly we see a spike in the sightings. Now, remember, as a statistician, I'm always working in the past. I'm always looking at last year or last month. I don't track present day stuff, but that's what we see.
Yeah, I've often thought about, when Peter Davenport has come on this show, or when he goes on Coast to Coast and he does this thing, are we seeing a spike then? Right, because Peter is on people's minds, right? The National UFO Reporting Center, it's right there, and if somebody sees something, they're going to do it, but they may not do it 2 days later, right? Peter's not on their mind.
Yes, I can talk to that as well. I observed when I was writing my column that, in fact, I got really good evidence of it here in 2008 in Indiana. Okay, they had one day where they had 25 sightings in one day. This is a state that has 3 sightings a week.
Right.
And these sightings were split between 2 counties, neighboring counties, of about 12 and 12. Okay. Right down, and I was able to drill right down to the municipality. But something else we did, I went out and looked at the newspaper reports for it, and there was a lot of it on the web. What seems to happen is if there's a lot of reports like today, tomorrow morning's paper, boom, there was all these sightings here in town. Oh, wow. People wake up and say, oh, I can go out to that New Fork place. I can go out to MUFON and do this. And do they report what was just talked about? No. I had this sighting 4 months ago or 2 weeks ago. And so that's when we start seeing the retro postings.
That makes a lot of sense.
You can see that very clearly if you're looking at National UFO Reporting Center. If you look at the posting date versus the actual sighting date, it's very different sometimes.
Yeah, you find out that Peter was on Coast to Coast on Friday.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly.
Yeah. That makes a lot of sense. But the jump between 2000 and 2001 is threefold, fourfold, where you go from
it is
a couple of hundred sightings to in the thousands. Right? That's a pretty big jump.
That is a very big jump, and that's always troubled me, because even 2000 was only like 500, and suddenly we got 4,500 or something like that there for 2001. But something special with 2001. We were told, don't tell anybody you saw that thing. They'll think you're crazy. Families were telling people, don't tell anybody about this stuff, But in 2001, we had 9/11 happened. Suddenly they said, report what you see.
Oh. I was thinking Y2K. Right. September 2001. Yeah. Everybody's looking to the skies.
And I told, and when I was writing my column, I had tens of thousands of people reading my column every week. And there was a banner at the bottom of every one of my columns that said, if you have a sighting that you want to report, even if it's in the past, NUFORC and MUFON, NUFORC.org and MUFON.com respect privacy. You may file your report anonymous if you wish, but please file your report. And I had it in there for every week for 7 years.
Now, before we move on to the next chart, you bring up a really good point, and I am going to state something as fact. I've reported 0. Okay, 0. And I called into MUFON once, but I didn't do an official sighting report, and I probably should have. And that was in 2008. And I've discussed this sighting many times. I'm not going to go into the details of that now, but I've reported 0. Okay. And I've had hundreds of sightings. How many people are like me? Do you report?
Lots of people. Okay. I got a number on that.
Okay.
For years, we couldn't reconcile the amount of sighting reports in the two databases against what people said they were seeing. Okay. And then in July of 2017, Fox Pictures was releasing a movie about the Phoenix Lights or something like that. And it was kind of a horror movie with abductions and everything. And part of their poll that they had conducted for them asked the typical questions and came back with the typical 35% believe in the stuff, 42 to 45% are on the fence, and 17-18% think it's all hogwash. Okay. But they asked an additional question. They had other questions, but one of the questions they asked was, have you seen a UFO? And a clear 16 over, little tad over 16% very clearly said they did. I wasn't comfortable with the metric because it was the only time it had ever been said. Then in September of 2019, the Gallup poll people did a similar thing, and they came up with that 16% number. So we took I calculated adult Americans, which is 75% of the population, okay, and I cranked it back against that 16% and said basically about 42 million people say they've seen a UFO, but I don't have 42 million reports in the thing. So we did some gyrations, played with the numbers a bit, and we basically came up with 1 in 255 people reports what they see. Now, the wisdom in the UFO community, and you've been around a while, you know as well as I do, it used to be, 1 in 10 people report what they see.
Right.
No.
Right.
No.
Right.
Or then I got told, Cheryl, it's 1 in 10 who sees them, and then 1 in 10 of them reports what they see. The numbers still didn't add up. That was UFO community folk wisdom of, Joe Blow haircutter down here at the barbershop asks everybody that comes in, or so and so over here who's a dentist, he asks everybody who comes in, or Stanton Friedman used to stand up at his lectures and have them raise the hands and people would count the percentages. But when we did it scientifically and statistically, it came up with 1 in about 250, and we've tried it several different ways, and it keeps shaking in somewhere between 1 in 250 and 1 in 300 people report what they see. Keeps falling in that range.
Now, what about another way to look at this? Now, for instance, we all know about sky watches, right? So now I'm out with 150 of my friends, right? And we all have this incredible sighting. That could go one of two ways. Peter Davenport gets 200 phone calls in a night.
Like the rocket launch.
Yes, right? Or we have a sensational sighting that is the most incredible thing of all time. It's Steven Spielberg going above us, but it doesn't get reported at all. Right?
That's happened at all. Let me give you one that I got from my journalism. I had some people up in the Adirondacks camping in one of these really isolated little lakes up there. Not a popular lake. It's not a place to go water skiing. It's one of these places you go hunting or something. And 10 people saw this incredible UFO. I mean, this thing came down. Okay.
Right.
All right. 5 of them clearly saw it for what it was. 3 of them saw some kind of cartoon representation. Remember, your eyesight is processed by your brain.
Sure.
Okay. So they saw something else, and one or two of the other people didn't see a thing, and they were looking right at it. Okay.
Right.
And there's psychological processes out there of this, they call the unexpected syndrome, where you can have a basketball game going out here and a guy can run out during a peak of the basketball game in a gorilla suit and nobody sees him.
That's right. So then you've got 3 different testimonies, right? Same event, right?
Yeah.
That would be classified 3 different ways in the data. Yeah.
My wife saw a triangle UFO going into a portal. I didn't see it. She saw it. Okay. In 2012, this is before I wrote my column. Actually, this kind of helped spark me start writing the column. I was working for a newspaper. I was in the technical department. I made the plates every night, and I had to stay there till the run was done. So the run gets done about 3:30 in the morning. I come home. It was a June night. Gazillion stars in the sky, and I had a kind of a little thing I did every night when I parked the car in the garage, closed the door. I'd stand there in the driveway and look out at the North Star and the Big Dipper. Okay, just kind of one of those connect with the universe kind of things.
Sure.
And I started hearing this humming sound, and all of a sudden I noticed the stars were being blotted out above me. It was a triangle-shaped UFO. It was over a football field long and about 2, maybe 3 stories deep.
What did it sound like again?
It had a humming sound.
Do it again.
A pulsating humming sound.
You do it so good.
But I sketched it out. I didn't report it. I was afraid to report it. Okay. And then sometime later when I met Dave Marler, my sketch matched up with the classic picture that he has, with the 3 glowing things in the back, the red light on the bottom, and the whole thing. I didn't report it. About a year later, when I was doing my column, I was back around that same date. A nurse coming off shift about 3:30 in the morning across town on one of the other hills here in Syracuse saw it and reported it. Okay, so there was for me, there was corroboration because this nurse reported it.
Yeah, it's got to make you feel pretty good. But the other part of this is, your habits. So how much really goes unreported, right? And you should be reporting everything, young lady, right? This is your gig, right?
I got yelled at by a lot of people. I'm a live action role play game person.
Sure.
Okay. So we're down in this place down in central Pennsylvania, someplace, farming community down there. What used to be an old dairy farm been turned into a fairy village for live action role play people with big rubber swords and chase
cool.
monsters through the woods.
Sure.
I did that stuff for a long time. Well, one night I wasn't feeling all that great, so I stayed at the tavern to guard the tavern.
With your rubber sword.
With my big elfin rubber sword. Okay. So I'm sitting here and I've laid my head back against the beam and I'm looking up at a very clear sky, and within about again, I'm a trained observer, so within about 10 minutes, I had the landing pattern for Scranton, Pennsylvania figured out, okay? And then I had the higher order pattern figured out for the region, okay? Mm-hmm. I knew what to look for. And then there were those things that were going unlike anything you can describe. I counted some 40 of them in 45 minutes. It was crazy. And I was out there for like an hour and a half. And I reported 2.
Who did you report to? By the way, who's your first?
I did it to National UFO Reporting
Center. Do it with Peter. Okay. I'm looking at the clock. We've only got a few short minutes left.
Do what you got to do.
Let's go to the next chart in order, because this one is not a repeat of but it's similar to the first chart. And this one is...
Well, we did it on purpose because we were explaining something else, and we wanted to make sure the chart was in front of people when they saw it.
Okay, and so let me go. There was the other... Influencers. How do we get to the end of the show and didn't go there? You know what? I'm putting this real quick. I'm going to put this on you. It's your fault.
Yeah, I know. Okay, influencers, proximity to large bodies of water. A lot of people know that. But my colleague Tom Conwell up in Troy, New York, discovered using my data proximity to toxic ecosystems. And whenever we talk to experiencers, they say, "Oh, hey, ET told us to take care of our planet." They haunt our brown fields, our dead coal mines, our dead fracking fields, our dead oil fields, our polluted rivers and polluted lakes. They haunt them regularly. They're very interested in how we're destroying our ecosystem. I think that personally, people say, other hosts have said, why are they coming now? Why are we getting the reveal now? I think ET is laying it on the government. You guys, they're going to make it so hard for the government to deny them. I think they're trying to get us to wake up, or they've reached out to the government and said, you tell them or we will, and you're at a tipping point with your ecology. I got a funny feeling that's what's going on.
Yeah, that's a very interesting point. And I think that the proximity to large bodies of water makes a lot of sense. And if you put pins in maps and start to, put this together, you can clearly see that. But the toxic...
Florida's one of those.
Yeah, well, Florida...
People say to me, well, Texas, it's got more population than Florida. Again, they need jerk on population. But I said, Florida has 3 times the coastal space.
That's right. And the same thing
population.
Same thing in California, Oregon, Washington,
Yes.
Right down the coast. But the toxic ecosystems part, that's new. That's a modern part of technology and in the historical timeline. We didn't have toxic ecosystems in the year 500, the year 2000.
We didn't.
Right?
But the other one was proximity to geological faults. And Tom found out that they seem to be really following our Sirius faults, especially like out in Missouri, got the Meridian Fault out there, that type of thing. They really seem to look at that. Another influencer is high visibility media reports, which is what we talked about. Hey, there's a big slug of sightings here. People decide, well, maybe I better tell everybody about the thing I had last year or last month or whatever. And then there's this thing called the generational effect, which we see with Los Angeles County and with Phoenix. Grandpa told us about the Battle of LA, and then Mom told us about the Phoenix lights. Maybe if we look up regularly, we'll see something.
Yeah, that's very interesting.
You'll see it.
Now, in the principal drivers, and again, the way that the charts lay out, once you understand this a bit more and you look at, the counties and the cities, it starts to make sense. But with the principal drivers, obviously the first thing is going to be population. If you don't have people living there, you're not going to have the sightings, right? I mean, that's an obvious statement.
Yeah. But it's not the knee jerk. A lot of people try to put it all in California because they got a big population. California crosses 9 lines of latitude, has 3 different major environments going on. Okay, and they got the population, but they've also got the leisure time issue. They got greater leisure time issues. There's a lot of stuff going on there. I always tell people, let California be by itself. It's an animal to its own self. If you start wanting to do comparisons on stuff, let's start looking at similar sized states with similar sized population. I was on one radio show after the first book came out, and I had the book laying in my lap, and I hadn't really even looked at some of my charts. Okay. And there was my census charts. And I was looking at the census charts, and I noticed that every state that touched one of the Great Lakes had sightings in the many thousands. Moved 2 states away, it was in the low hundreds. And that's what got us looking at this idea of rural areas, lack of broadband. And I started tracking that back against industry issues about where broadband is, where it isn't, and where it is, like here in New York State, and where it isn't. And access to broadband is a major issue, a major driver.
Now, I've only got 30 seconds left, But you are you speaking? People need to hear this. They need to see the Are you going to be speaking in the next year? Are you going to get out now that conferences are back?
I'm on. I'm recording another presentation for Contact in Desert tomorrow.
Right.
They're going to be like next week.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And then I might be at Pine Bush.
Okay.
In September. Remember, we're still on the tail end of the COVID lockdown.
Yes, we are.
And then I'm hoping for some bookings in 2020. Anybody wants me, I'm available. And I've got the best stuff going here as far. And statistics aren't boring. If you listen to the show, there's interesting stuff here. And I've got great slides to show you. I've got a map of every county in the country that's had this one shape. I've got maps that I do maps for some states by zip code.
I just want to. I'm gonna bring you to a conference so you, Linda, and I can just sit at dinner and yap. That's all I want to do. Let's go do it. Cheryl, thank you so much. What a great show tonight. I look forward to the next time that we
anytime
have we just scratched the surface tonight. But thank you so much. Go and enjoy the rest of your evening. Thank you so much.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Cheryl Costa, the very best. Now, all of the links for Cheryl's work are over at jimmychurchradio.com. We just went bumper to bumper, poll to poll. I've got to get straight to credits. Let's get that out of the way. Fade to black. Oh, man. Where am I at? I don't even know where I am anymore. When I go over data, I am just happy. I am happy. Okay. Now, Fade to Black is produced by... I've lost everything. Fade to Black is produced by Hill J. Palm, Renee, Dennis, and Kevin. Announcers are Steve Harder, Gene Vitoa, Mark D. Kobar. Webmaster is Drew the Geek. Music, Doug Aldrich. Intro, Spaceboy, spaceboymusic.com. Fade to Black is produced by KJCR for the Game Changer Network, and syndication is KGRA, The Planet. This broadcast owned and copyrighted 2021 by Fade to Black and the Game Changer Network, Inc. They cannot be rebroadcast, downloaded, copied, or used anywhere in the known universe without written permission from Fade to Black and the Game Changer Network. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Tomorrow night, right here, Ronnie Dawson. Very special thanks to Cheryl Costa. Until tomorrow night, I want everybody to be safe. It's time to fade to black.